we go.
Well, hello out there in podcast land, and welcome back to the Front Row Network of Podcasts, the podcast for people who actually like movies. And welcome to our annual tradition, a tradition unlike any other. It is time once again for March Movie Madness at the Front Row. And that means one thing. It's time to fight about a bracket. Let's get it on. Woo! It is time. So last month on our Facebook page, we put up 2 brackets for you to vote on, and you decided that this year's bracket was going to be the greatest summer movie blockbuster of all time. So we put together a 64 movie bracket, and we've had you vote all week on Facebook to determine the first round. And now we are going to dissect the next round from the second round all the way to the finals. We're going to break it down. We're going to vote. We're going to talk. We're going to argue. We're going to swear. We're going to do lots of different stuff. I'm going to drink some scotch, and we'll see who ultimately gets the crown of the greatest summer blockbuster of all time. And so let's introduce our panel. First off, I want to welcome a regular to the brackets and obviously a very familiar face, more familiar than me because he's been doing this shit longer than I have. Please welcome Craig McFarland. How's it going, Craig?
I am great. I'm making my triumphant return to brackets like James Gunn coming back to Disney, only with less questionable tweeting. I am here and I'm ready to go.
I've seen you slightly less questionable.
I was going to say, I follow you on Twitter.
I've seen your tweets, man.
It's all just trying to get a hold of Kevin Smith and retweeting Pete Buttigieg. That's all it is right now. So that is my Twitter.
You do have an unhealthy obsession with Mayor Pete, man.
We'll talk after.
All right. And so that second voice you hear is yet again the editor-in-chief of the Front Row, Mr. Jeremy Geckner. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be back on the brackets. I was pulling for sports movies, but you know what? I'll go and do the blockbusters anyway. And, after successfully guiding the classic Interview with the Vampire through the NIT 90s bracket, I am confident in my ability to screw this bracket up as well.
I cannot wait for us to screw this up. And here to screw it up with you is your wife, your better half, the notorious SBG herself, Sarah Baltusevich Geckner. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. You said a tradition like any other, and I come from a golf family, so I just wanted to be like the Masters on CBS. That's what my brothers always say. I was like,
yeah, who needs golf? Come on.
My family.
Let's go golf or talk movies. Come on. We know what we're doing here.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, if we would have done sports movies, then we could have talked
golf. We could have done both. We could do both. And maybe we will someday. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it later. But in the meantime, rounding out this panel, a brand new contributor to the Front Row Network. I'm very excited to have her on board for the first time, joining us from the Windy City, from Chicago. Please welcome Erin McCabe. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped to be here. I'm also not here to make any friends, so I'm ready.
Gauntlet thrown.
I like this. I like it a lot.
I haven't had friends in 20 years. It's fine. So, all right, Erin, welcome. And because this is a tradition here on the Front Row, before we get started, I would like to ask you, what is your favorite movie?
Jurassic Park, hands down.
Wait.
Foreshadowing
here. Conflict of interest.
I know,
that
right?
on the bracket? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I get
that one bracket's pretty heavy.
All right, so that's
my favorite movie of all time.
There's a bit of a controversy online, and maybe this can foreshadow the discussion on this movie. But there's no, they didn't CGI in any butts for the dinosaurs, and so it's like they're like a closed system. Do they all just die because they can't poop anyway? This is the type of hot takes you come
thinks about.
Is that
people.
for serious?
Yeah.
Well, we're
Kevin Smith thing. No, he pointed this out that
Well, they don't have any genitalia either, so it would make sense if they also forgot an anus.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So
life finds a way, Craig. You have to remember that.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk dinosaur anuses as the night progresses. But let's talk in the broader scope for the moment here, and let's tell you what we did with this year's bracket podcast. In case you haven't been following us on Facebook, we went summer movie blockbusters. So just so you know right off the bat, we went with a certain criteria. The first criteria is, and this will be actually a fairly controversial one because we're going to get into it in a minute. The first one is, what is the summer? We had to answer that question. So we determined that the summer movie season, the traditional summer movie season, is Memorial Day through Labor Day. So in order to be eligible for this bracket, the movie had to be released on or around Memorial Day weekend or before Labor Day weekend. So there's a lot of really good movies and big blockbusters, especially in the 2010s that get released in late April, early May, mostly MCU stuff now, that didn't even qualify for the bracket. But hey, MCU wants to make that cash a few weeks early. That's fine. They'll just have to settle with their money instead of bracket glory. That's their choice. So then when we collected those together, we seeded these and put these together based on a certain criteria, basically kind of the same criteria we've done on previous brackets. One, cultural impact when it first came out. How big of a summer movie was it at the time? How big of a cultural moment was it? How much money did it make? Yada, yada, yada. Two, the cultural impact since it's come out. Is it still in the cultural zeitgeist? Is it still something we talk about? Is it still something we look back on and say, oh, that was such a great movie? How much does it hold up? And then third, and this is where we get into the more nebulous region, which will be a lot of fun as we debate, how much of a summer movie is it? Does it make you harken back to those days? Is it something that fits what your ideal of what a good summer movie has to be? So as always, we're not necessarily debating the quality of the film, but maybe we're just debating the more summer quality of the film. And so as we go through it, everybody's opinion is going to vary wildly, and I can't wait. So Mr. Jeremy is in the control center, and he's got our brackets up. We divided these by decades. And so let's just go ahead and start right out with the 70s and 80s bracket. And we've got to start, folks, with a little bit of controversy.
Uh-oh.
Oh, right.
Right off the bat. So when we made our bracket of 64 that you voted on our Facebook page, there was a movie that was in here that should not have been on here.
What?
We're not sure how this snuck past. This was an imposter movie. This is not a summer movie. And that was Superman, which was ranked a number 9 seed. It went up against Batman, a number 8 seed. Fortunately, Batman's fraud. We found out it's just a suit. He's not real. Like we've found his alter ego, and apparently that alter ego was a fraud because Superman was actually released in December. We're not sure how that slipped by the officials. We blame Lori. Look, there might have been some bribery.
To get into this bracket.
Yeah,
Lou.
Lori Loughlin may have been involved somehow. That's just what I'm saying.
Had to go there.
So this was recruited as a summer movie, and we have fortunately fettered it out. So it has been disqualified. So right off the bat, we're gonna throw that one out, and Batman's immediately going to be going to the second round. So let's take a look. Jeremy, do you got the brackets for the 70s and 80s that we can talk about?
Let's see here.
Get it together
somewhere. Keep vamping, man. I can't quite get them on my screen.
So
here.
We started with a round of 64, and then the past week, all of these matchups has been voted on. So what we decided to do was go from the round of 32 on. So for the sake of brevity, because every time we've done these in the past, this has usually been like a 2-episode, 3+ hour ordeal. So we thought for the sake of everyone's sanity, we would let you decide and have a voice.
Jeremy's trying to figure this out here.
All right. Well, while Jeremy's figuring it out, it'll come up. Let's just go right to our first matchup then, because I've got it with me. So our first matchup that we're going to talk about today is the number 1 seed in this bracket, Jaws, which overwhelmingly defeated the number 16 seed Gremlins. And it's going to be taking on the number 8 seed Batman, which, as I pointed out, advanced over disqualification over Superman but was a very close race until we realized Superman wasn't actually a summer movie. So I think there's going to be some contention here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go round and round. Everybody's going to give their thoughts and give their votes. So I'm going to give the floor over to our newest member of the brackets. And I will say, Aaron, how do you vote between Jaws and Batman?
For me, I've got to go. You've got one movie, Jaws. It came out in 75. You've got Batman that comes out in 89. So they're a lot further apart as far as when they were released and styles and stuff like that. But I have to go Jaws. Just because Jaws is like the first, it sets the tone, and I think it sets the template for summer blockbusters for everything after that. As far as marketing the film, how they started marketing the book release and the film before it was released in the summer of 75. It had a huge cultural impact as a horror/thriller movie. It really, I think, took advantage of the increase in theaters and multiplexes attached to malls as a summer hangout for kids. So it drove people, use that to drive people into the theater as another form of entertainment on a hot day to get out of the sun. And then obviously just the movie, people were terrified to go into the ocean after seeing that movie, right? So I just feel like between the two, I gotta go with Jaws.
All right. Well, I'm going to differ with you right off the bat. Let's get into it. Let's get into the weeds. Listen,
man.
I respect, Jaws, as you pointed out, it's the OG, it's the original summer blockbuster. But in my mind, original doesn't always mean best. And I'm going to, obviously, this whole thing is going to be littered with bias. So let me just get one of my first biases out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Batman's 1989. I'm 9 years old when this movie comes out. So I'm in the theater. I'm watching this thing. I got the cups. I got the promos. I got all the merchandising. I am inundated with Batman. So for me, what Batman did was do the blockbuster really well. And just the whole rollout of the merchandising, and what an event this movie was. Like in 1989, you couldn't escape Batman. And FYI, only movie on here with a soundtrack by Prince. So let's just throw that out there. Prince laying down some tracks. Party Man still a banger. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go with Batman. That's my vote. Craig, what say you? Jaws versus Batman.
Well, we all know that you have an inherent Steven Spielberg bias here, but he is the creator of the summer blockbuster. It's silly to even consider Batman in this spot. Batman is a good movie. I think that, controversial statement. I think that some of the later Batmans that came about were equal in their Batmanness. Especially when you got Batman running around with a gun. It's like Zack Snyder directed that 89 Batman.
Oh, God.
So I would say Jaws, Aaron nailed it. Cultural impact, people were scared of going into the water. And little kids are still scared going into a swimming pool and thinking that Jaws is going to get them, right? So at least I was. Maybe that's just me. But
and everybody knows that theme.
Exactly. Yes, we didn't even think about the score.
Wait, you don't know the Batman theme? Come on, Craig. Come on.
This is the reason why we have this bracket, and it's cute to think that an 8 seed could knock it out. But if the Geckners end up voting with Lou, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, guess what? This Geckner is voting with Lou.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I am personally not a huge fan of Jaws. To be honest, I actually hadn't even seen it until 5 or 6 years ago, and I fell asleep. I get it. I get that sharks are scary and they eat people, but I don't know. It just wasn't my bag. And Batman is one of my, I don't know. I love the soundtrack. I love Michael Keaton. right here. I love Nicholson in it. I think it's just, and Lou said it right. It just had a huge impact, like with its marketing. And I mean, I was only a mere 4-year-old, but I mean, I remember having the VHS, and it was just a huge deal in my house, that Batman movie. So I'm going with Lou on this one. Batman all the way.
So we have a tie. We are 2-2. This is why we have 5 people. Jeremy, it's down to you, my friend. Jaws versus Batman. Who's advancing to the Sweet 16?
Okay, so here's the problem. Craig, I think you fell into the classic bracket folly here, man, which is you went for the better movie, which is not necessarily what we're going for here. We're going for the best summer movie, all right? What embodies a summer blockbuster, okay? And now I'm with Lou in the sense of Batman was freaking everywhere that summer. I mean, God, they just made it, and they made sure that the Batman poster was in that movie, okay? So, I mean, like, it was a cultural touchstone point. That having been said, Jaws is the answer here, people. I mean,
what a little brat you are.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. The problem here is just like, look, Jaws is going to have a lot of competition here in the next round between either of the next two.
Not to me.
But I just think that Craig is right in the sense that this movie being like set in the summer and about summer topics, and the fact that it really created a whole generation of people that like did not want to swim ever again because of it. I think that is just kind of what pushes it over heads. That even the subject matter in the film is about the summer and what the summer means in this scenario. So I got to say Jaws is moving on.
There's no way that we could have a film podcast and allow Jaws to get beat in the first round of a summer blockbuster bracket when everyone knows it established the summer blockbuster. Like, anyway, glad it's moving on.
It's fair enough, on, man.
Look. Okay, we'll talk and we'll get to it. All right, so let's get on to our next matchup. Then we got a 4 versus 5 seed here. 2 movies that I was not surprised at all advanced out of the Sweet 16.
I think we can share the screen here real quick.
All right, let's share that screen.
Let's do this, okay? Can you see it?
We can see it there. Oh, I had it.
It's right here. Right here.
Yeah, I think it only shows up when you talk. So
all right. Everyone got it? Good. Boom. Right here. Here's the matchup.
All right. So there it is. Jaws is going to advance, and it's going to face the winner of, I think, one of the toughest matches in this round. We got a 4 seed versus a 5 seed. We have Back to the Future, a 5 seed, which easily dispatched of a number 12 seed, Die Hard, which I'm okay with. Die Hard is a great movie, but I don't think I think it's a Christmas movie. It's not a summer movie.
I was just going to say, I thought y'all said it was a Christmas movie.
It is, but it happened to be released in the summer. And it's going to go up against the number 4 seed, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which beat its own franchise entry in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So here we go. The number 4 seed versus the 5 seed, Raiders of the Lost Ark versus Back to the Future. Let's go reverse order this time. Let's start with Jeremy.
This is a hard one, and because obviously both of these movies, you can't even have a quality bias because they're both all-time classics. So you really have to go with which one captured the summer a bit more. And I don't know, maybe it's just age bias, but I've watched Back to the Future way more, and I've seen way more McDonald's toys for Back to the Future. So I'm going to go with Back to the Future.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
I'm going to agree with my husband on this one and go with Back to the Future. It's just a classic for me. Like he said, we've watched this trilogy like a zillion times, and it's just such a quotable, like one of the all-time greats, Marty McFly for life. So I'm going Back to the Future.
All right, Craig, how about you?
You really can't argue with either of these 2 movies advancing. I will say that in the like if you're looking at them as a trilogy, I do think that Raiders is the strongest film of the trilogy. I'm not so sure that the first Back to the Future is, because again, I'm a 90s baby and I absolutely loved Back to the Future 2. And it was pretty predictive of our current political environment in a weird way. So anyway, I would say that just to keep it interesting and not to give Back to the Future the full sweep, I'm going to go Raiders of the Lost Ark because it is the pinnacle action adventure film, and I love my Steven Spielberg. What can I say? So I'm going to go Raiders of the Lost Ark.
To be fair, Back to the Future was at least produced by Spielberg, so Spielberg.
Fair enough.
Spielberg is
Has
getting
a hand in both.
Spielberg is getting represented regardless. But all right, Aaron, what say you? Back to the Future versus Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Both are super amazing trilogies. Both have memorable soundtracks. Both grossed around the same amount. Both were clearly huge successes, but I think I've got to go Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Thank you.
There's that franchise, even though I love Back to the Future, but again, as far as cultural relevance, they're still producing Indiana Jones movies. That's another one where I think people from our generation or like our age group can recognize the Back to the Future soundtrack. But again, like Indiana Jones, everyone knows that theme. They know that hat. You know, I don't know, that was a really tough bracket for me. It was a tough decision to make, but Raiders.
All right, so it is down to me. I guess I get to be the tiebreaker this time. And honestly,
I was 5 years old when Back to the Future came out, and I was in the theater. Okay, sorry.
I know Scott is on hiatus from the podcast, but did he like just imbue his spirit into you? Like, I know you're brothers, but I don't remember you being this Scott-esque.
I really just need to go get a beer, I think.
Okay, you go get a beer because you're not gonna like what I have to say.
All right, I'll be back.
Okay, I love the Indiana Jones franchise too. I think both of these, as you pointed out, both of these are great summer escapist fare. Like, and I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about. It's a recurring theme, what you look for in a summer movie, and escapism, I think, is one, and both of these movies offer that. So I have no question about that. That said, I will say, to me, you mentioned soundtrack, Aaron, and I know I harped on soundtrack in the last one. I'm not always going to harp on soundtrack, but one of the great summer jams of the 80s is Lewis. Power of Love.
Yeah,
Huey Lewis and the News, baby. My friend.
Yeah.
I prefer Back in Time myself.
Well, thank you. It's a twofer. It's a twofer. You got two right there. You got Back in Time. You got Excellent Power of Love. Nominated for an Oscar, by the way, Power of Love.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
So, you know, in terms of which of those trilogies get me in the feels more, it's the Back to the Future one. So I'm going to vote Back to the Future. So sorry, Indy.
Yeah. See, I was trying to think of the Indiana Jones theme, and it's not coming into my brain. There you go. There you go.
Sarah.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm a music teacher. I should be ashamed. But
all right. So I'm going to turn it over now because we're realizing how screen share works. Oh, Craig's got a beer now.
He's better.
Well, we're good.
He can calm now. Okay, Craig. Are we gonna get some more measured takes out of you, or are we?
I'm guessing Back to the Future one.
It did.
It did.
Okay.
It did. Okay. You
Bye,
can thank
Andy.
and you can thank Huey Lewis for that.
That's right.
And the Power of Love.
All right. All right. So Jeremy, tell us about our next matchup.
Well, let's see here. We've got a barn burner of Ghostbusters versus Who Framed Roger Rabbit in a huge upset over E.T. in the first round. What? Anyway, back to you, Lou.
All right.
How did that even happen?
Thank you. I am only listeners. I love you. I love everybody that subscribes to the Front Row and follows us on Facebook. But there's only 2 times I'm going to shake my head at you, and this is the first one.
You're gonna shake people for the right decision, man. I mean,
okay. First of all, who's got the anti-Spielberg bias, Craig? You can't even get E.T. to the round of 32?
Guys, E.T. is the most boring movie that's ever been made. It is so incredibly
Scott, stop it. Get Craig back on the line.
3-year-old me is crying. That's the first movie I ever saw in a theater and remember.
and Bob Hoskins is the best, and that animation. You got to remember, I'm the animation guy, so bringing in that live action with animation in such a great way. I mean, it obviously had been done in like Mary Poppins and several films before that, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit really brought it to the next level, which is why I, in our poll, voted for that over Snooze Fest.
No,
E.T.
no.
Oh man,
Can't be friends.
Yeah, I mean,
these are
it was
fighting words,
close
man.
at least. It was a 3-vote difference, but come on.
I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Don't get me wrong, I do, but E.T. is like, that's a classic.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's classic film noir it's just a really cool setup. Like everything about Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a really, really cool way to present that storyline of a classic Hollywood storyline in a different way. And yeah, I mean, there's so many better alien movies out there, guys.
So Craig, I'll let
There's
you.
like millions of better.
They don't fly
alien
on
movies.
bikes.
Yeah.
So Craig, I'll let you start. Then, are you voting for it over Ghostbusters?
No. I mean, it's Ghostbusters.
Oh man, it was worth it just for that.
So you couldn't even bring it here just to get beat by Ghostbusters,
Right.
Well, no, I think that there's respectability in being in the round of 32. No,
That E.T. hasn't earned, you heartless monster.
Ghostbusters to me is the film that stuck around the longest out of the two of them, and I cannot wait for the son to get the keys to the car and for the trilogy to be complete. So I'm excited for it.
All right, Aaron, what say you? Ghostbusters versus Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I mean, I know you were giving me some shit in the brackets earlier today, but when I saw this, I'm like, you got bigger bracket problems than what I voted for earlier today. But yes, I get what Craig is saying about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's very cool. It's an interesting concept. It's a good storyline. It's a little dark for an animated feature.
Just a little.
Yeah, and it does remind me of summer. I do remember my mom like taking us and a couple kids in the neighborhood like on a rainy day, being like, "Let's go to this theater," and it was one of those like where it showed the mini films beforehand. But I don't think it can compete with Ghostbusters in any way, shape, or form.
All right, Jeremy, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, look, Brandon Davis and I are doing our top 100 films of all time right now list after watching the AFI's top 100. And spoiler alert, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is one of my top 100 films ever made. And I think it is an amazing film and way before its time. And that said, I'm giving it a swift death against Ghostbusters because I'm sorry, but like Ghostbusters just that movie took over that summer and it was just, I mean, it came out of nowhere in some ways, but I mean, like that was the movie of that summer. So Ghostbusters has to move on here.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
Well, I'm just pissed about E.T., so I'm going to vote for Ghostbusters.
Spite vote.
You're like, burn it down.
Yeah.
No, I love Ghostbusters. It's one of the most quotable movies of all time. It's hilarious. It still holds up today. It's got just some of the best memorable scenes of, that I can think of in movie history. And as much as Who Framed Roger Rabbit is just really genius, I just think Ghostbusters just trounces it. And you guys kicked out E.T. early, so suck it.
Yeah, look, yeah, and no disrespect, I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, I had a Roger Rabbit themed birthday party. I went and we saw that movie, and it's great. It's so good. It's a great movie, and I do think it holds up better than E.T. Craig. To give you, I will throw you that olive branch, good sir. It holds up better than E.T. if I had a choice between which of the two to watch. But E.T. was a seminal summer blockbuster. It's like one of the highest grossing movies of all time. It created a moment. Reese's Pieces wouldn't exist if E.T. wasn't there. The fact E.T.'s not even in the discussion makes this a much easier bracket. Because for the reasons you all said, Ghostbusters owned the summer of '84. It's everything you want in a summer blockbuster. It's funny. It's got special effects. It's got a star-studded cast. It's great. It's moving on. All right, Jeremy, let's get to the next matchup.
All right, let's get to it here because we've got Rocky 3, after a win over Lethal Weapon 2, taking on Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, that defeated Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, despite the insane protestations of one Mr. Scott McFarland.
All right, so let's get into this for a minute, because when you put these brackets together, you basically look at like the biggest hits that happened to be released during the summer, and Rocky 3 is there.
I mean,
I don't know of a single person who thinks of Rocky 3 as a summer blockbuster movie. Look, the beach scene is great. Apollo and Rocky hugging in the ocean can't be beat.
Dude, that did a lot for gay culture there, man. I mean,
Stallone was ahead of his time. He didn't even know how ahead he was. And again, I think this is one of those what holds up better, because you're talking summer of '89. We talk about Batman. Lethal Weapon 2 was right there neck and neck. It was a big deal in the summer of '89. And I think we've forgotten about it because there were 2 more Lethal Weapons and we're all kind of out on Mel Gibson, which is fine. So Rocky 3 sneaking into the second round. Look, I love Rocky. You can bona fides as much as the next guy. But yeah, this is silly. Let's just Star Wars.
Do a consensus vote here.
Yeah, Star Wars. Let's call it a day. Anybody got anything to say other than Star Wars?
The only question I have is, does that just say Rocky behind you, or does it say Rocky 5?
No, that's how dare you, sir?
How
dare you?
Because
I will adjust
really
the camera.
Kind of blurry from here, and it kind of looks like Rocky 5.
No, it is a framed poster.
No, I'm talking about the belt.
No, the belt itself is just Rocky General. No, it is the Rocky Championship belt.
Right. I'm
Thank you very much.
That Y made it kind of look like a V. I was really
How
confused.
dare you, sir?
You go straight to hell and you die.
I'll just say I pity the fool that wants to try and go up against Star Wars.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody got anything to say, or we're going to talk about Star Wars in another round? Can we just all any consensus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. All right. So for brevity's sake,
motion passed.
Star Wars, A New Hope. And by the way, when I say Star Wars, of course I mean A New Hope. It's the original summer. It's the second biggest summer blockbuster from the 70s. So okay, that gets us out of the 80s for now. Jeremy, take us to the 90s. Tell us what we got coming up here.
Abso-frickin-lutely here. Well, we're starting off right here, folks, with Jurassic Park, already a favorite of one of the panelists here, so unfair advantage. It defeated Ghost in the first round to advance. It's going up against Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, that defeated There's Something About Mary in the first round. Lou, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let's get this started off. I'll start real quick, and just because I think I know where we're going. Excuse me, Aaron, if I don't start with you, since this is your favorite movie.
No worries.
But we will take a moment to acknowledge, because I think I know where we're heading here, and just say the Austin Powers movies are such a staple of the 90s. And this second movie, because the first one was this kind of low budget, it was released in like the early spring. No one thought it was going to do anything. It did a lot of home video. And then all of a sudden, Austin Powers is a thing. That gets you The Spy Who Shagged Me in the summer. And it was a big deal. It was one of the biggest movies of the year. And Austin Powers is still very much in the culture. Like everybody had a Dr. Evil impression. Everyone had an Austin Powers impression. Everyone had that. So let's acknowledge that. And I think so. For that reason, I'm glad it advanced over There's Something About Mary, which in and of itself was a big hit of its time. But I think Austin Powers really represents that time period. That said, Jurassic Park's number one for a reason.
Consensus again?
Yeah, I think consensus. Anybody got anything they want to say about Austin Powers 2 before we rubber stamp Jurassic Park into the second round?
I'll agree with you. I like these movies. I always have. I even like the third one, God help my soul. And, I think that this one was pretty enjoyable. And you're right, though. It's hard to beat that first one. But this one is the logical choice with the bracket criteria. And
if I made any argument, it would have been for There's Something About Mary and the lack of Brett Favre in The Spy Who Shagged Me. So
truthful.
Again, conflict of interest. You own part of the team, Craig.
By the way, side note, every time you go back to Lou, do you guys remember the TV show Guts?
Yeah.
man.
You remember how the host would always be like, "And to the leaderboard, Mo." I just
exactly.
every time you go, and we're back, Loop.
Dude, I am so channeling Mike O'Malley here, man. You have no idea.
Okay.
Do we get a piece of the aggro crag at the end?
I wanted the aggro crag so much because
too.
it was kind of like my name.
All right.
You would want it for that reason. God.
All right. Well, I'm glad we've had some kumbaya in these last couple of votes.
Yeah, because this one's about to get
shit's about to get real. Jeremy, what's our next matchup?
Our next matchup, Forrest Gump, which defeated Sleepless in Seattle, going up against Armageddon, which defeated Speed in the first round, and which is probably the toughest matchup of all time. Again, Lou, back to you.
Okay, I said there was only twice that I got butthurt during this. During our fan voting.
I think Sarah's pissed about this too.
I am.
Here's number 2. Thank you, Sarah. You get me.
I do. We just get it.
Thank you. Seriously, I'm going to give you a Blu-ray of Armageddon and a Blu-ray of Speed. One of these you have to watch tonight. What's the answer going to be? It's going to be Speed.
People.
It's going to be Speed.
Speed is a perfect. It is an epitome of a summer movie to me. It is fun. It's fast paced. It's sweaty. It's Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock just oozing charisma. Like they're making a ridiculous movie work under they make that movie should not work.
No, but it does.
But it works on every level, and the fact that it is not here is a bit of
an abomination, really.
Thank you, Sarah. So I would like to turn it over to the person who actually is responsible. Because as of this morning, folks, on our Facebook page, this was a tie. Whoa. We had a tie between Armageddon and Speed.
Sarah.
I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
Who you mad at now, Lou?
Yeah.
Who you mad at now?
Sorry.
You know why we have Trump, Sarah.
That's right. People like you.
It really is.
Comrade Sarah over there.
Oh, shit.
All right. So let me turn it over to somebody who did vote and who is the reason that Armageddon is in the second round over Speed. Aaron, you get to vote first, but first I'd like to hear your rationale of Armageddon over Speed.
Too, Aaron.
That was a rough one. It was a rough one for me to decide. And I tried to be as objective as I could and base it off of the definition, notably expensive, effective, successful, extravagant. And while Speed is the better movie, as far as marketing, as far as hitting, what's that called? Like hitting every demographic, women, the love story that Armageddon has right off the bat. It doesn't develop later. The love song that ends up, littering high school dances for the next 2 to 3 decades.
Woof.
And I know. And how flagrantly, I know, Kino. It was so painful.
I'm just asking you, if you're going to explain this, I just would like you to look into his eye.
It to him.
Yep.
I know.
The Theodore S. Preston Esquire.
I'm not gonna lie. If I had to choose, Keanu and Speed over Ben Affleck and Armageddon, it'd be Keanu, hands down. But Armageddon was a summer blockbuster. Speed to me was more of a sleeper hit. It gained traction and popularity over time, where it was like, oh, you got to see this, it's great. Whereas right out the gates, Armageddon had that blockbuster. It's Michael Bay. He's quintessential 90s blockbuster. So that was why I did that. It was not because I actually thought it was a better movie.
All right. So that said, in this round, Armageddon versus Forrest Gump, who's your pick?
This one's really hard because, again, Armageddon is quintessential. Blockbuster. It is summer, but so is Forrest Gump. I went with Forrest Gump over Armageddon because Forrest Gump ends up spending much more time at the box office over the summer and into the fall. It has, I think, greater staying power than Armageddon, you know, and maybe that's my nostalgia coming through, but it ended up being Forrest Gump.
All right, Craig, what say you?
For me, first of all, I agree with everything that Aaron said about the Speed and Armageddon debate. I mean, when you have a movie that get out of here, Keanu, you only had one good Matrix movie. Lou, you have a personal bias here. He has other good movies. I'm just saying he ruined the Matrix franchise.
He didn't ruin the Matrix franchise. There was the Wachowski brothers. Come on,
the Wachowski sisters. Isn't it?
Excuse me, pardon me. But yes, Keanu is not the reason that the Matrix. But I'll let you.
On topic, ladies and gents.
Anyway, Armageddon had a song at the top of the Billboard charts. It had Ben Affleck kind of on his rise to being Ben Affleckness, and he. It had Bruce Willis before he fell from being Bruce
an asshole.
Willis.
Yeah.
It kind of was like the intersection of those two careers, really.
So Steven Tyler put some mojo on both of them.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember being really into Armageddon, and if you remember, it was in direct competition with Deep Impact as well that summer, and Armageddon just blew Deep Impact out of the water.
Deep Impact's title is much better.
Yeah.
It's also the movie that can also be the title of its porn parody.
Right, exactly.
I love Tom Hanks in the 90s, but I've got to go with Armageddon here because it's the bigger summer blockbuster.
All right. I'm going to agree with you, Craig. And as much as I would bemoan, honestly, I'd pick either one of these, Armageddon or Speed. As much as I think Speed should be getting this place in the Sweet 16 because for all the reasons I said earlier, and maybe it's celebrating its 20th anniversary. So you may or may not see an article celebrating that on the Front Row Network's website in the near coming months. But I will say, for everything you said, Craig, I think to me, Forrest Gump is a prestige movie that happened to be released during the summer as opposed to a summer event, I guess is the way that I would look at it. And I know that's maybe splitting hairs, but this is what we do here. Armageddon to me, you're right. Don't Want to Miss a Thing was such a big, and 98's the year I graduated high school. So everyone was hearing that song at their proms and just that thing is just, that's the summer of 98 is that song to me in a lot of ways. And that movie, as much as I would have liked to see Speed, I'm going to go Armageddon. So Jeremy, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, look, Forrest Gump's clearly the better film. It's not even close. And look, I'm not a big fan of Michael, I Must Move My Camera Bay, but I gotta say, Aaron convinced me. So I'm going with Armageddon here.
She voted for Forrest Gump.
She voted for Forrest Gump, by the way.
Yeah, Aaron convinced you to not.
She convinced me on the Speed Armageddon arguments. So
okay.
You backfired there, Aaron.
I did.
Well, all right. So that's a consensus. Sarah, do you got anything you can vote?
I was going to vote for Forrest Gump. So if you would have let me go first, Jeremy, it would have been more interesting.
Could have had some attention here.
I'm just not a big fan of Armageddon. I mean, we're drilling an asteroid, guys. We're deep drilling an asteroid. It was just never one of my favorites. The song was big and all that jazz, but I saw Forrest Gump in the theater 9,000 times with my mom. So go ahead, Armageddon. If it was Speed, there would have been no questions. But
I'm sorry.
I'll take some lashing for that because I didn't vote. But
and even if I dream of you,
thank you, Craig.
Man, it might be worth it just to see Craig Steven Tyler here.
Can I hold my hand up to you right there? There we go. Craig and I, we're touching anyway. All right, we have okay. All right, Jeremy, get us out of here. What's our next matchup?
Okay, our next matchup,
and I'm pretty sure we've seen this matchup before because I remember fighting over this in a different bracket.
Oh my god!
The next matchup here.
We totally did.
Are you serious?
Men in Black defeated The Lion King to get through, and it will go up against Independence Day, which defeated Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So
Well,
much
duh.
to say. Lou!
All right. So yeah, for those of you who subscribe to the front row, you'll know in our 90s bracket, this was another second
Was a
round matchup. If this was a Will Smith duo, a face-off, Independence Day versus Men in Black, 2 Will Smith movies, both huge summer hits. So
And
Sarah,
not to be mentioned here, Men in Black won it last time.
Did.
yeah, it did. Men in Black over The Lion King and Independence Day over Episode 1. I got to say, both of those things, again, Lion King's probably a better movie than Men in Black, but in terms of summer events, I think you got to go Men in Black.
Lion King had a severe lack of rapping. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely. maybe
Nathan
the
Lane
live
would have been rapping in the
Hey,
Lion King.
you know,
would have been fine.
Hey, Donald Glover's in the live action version. Maybe
That's
we'll
true,
we'll get a Childish Gambino joint on.
Damn right, man.
Like that would be. I honestly I co-sign that legitimately. But anyway,
Right now.
all right, Sarah, you didn't get to vote really on the last one, so I'll let you start. Men in Black versus Independence Day.
I'm going the same way I did last time, Independence Day. I just think as far as a summer blockbuster and an action movie, it has everything. It has everything. And Independence Day was first, right? Of these two?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the first introduction to the big, non-Fresh Prince-ness of Will Smith. And it's just, I don't know, like I said, it has comedy, it has fear, it has action, it has love stories, it has
The best
risking
speech.
our lives to save a dog. It has
Yeah.
all of it. So yeah, and the best presidential speech of all time.
Yes.
And a really excited
All right,
guy.
all right. Power
So
Jay
I'm going
Whitmore.
Independence Day because it's just a heck of a summer movie.
All right, Aaron, how about you?
Gotta go Independence Day.
Girl,
Boom.
yes.
For everything she said, exactly. It's I can remember on July 3rd going to see that movie after caddying all day and everything like that. And especially like she said, it's like the music, the theme, Will Smith in a non-quirky funny role, the speech by Thomas J. Whitmore, President
You got
Thomas
it.
J. Whitmore.
It
Yeah,
has the middle
hands
initials.
down.
knows the middle
Yeah.
initial,
You
man.
should, as everyone should.
My husband can he can recite that speech from
I think
memory.
mine can too.
And he's
Yeah.
now my hero.
All right, so Jeremy, are you making this? Are you shutting this down early? Is it a third vote for Independence Day?
You know what's funny is on the last bracket I voted for Men in Black, just because I felt like that one kind of really captured the '90s more. But yeah, this is easy. This is Independence Day. I mean, there was nothing else to do that summer but go see this movie, and I saw it a lot. And anything with Bill Pullman, I mean that's obviously the win.
And Jeff
dude.
Goldblum.
And Jeff
Can't
Goldblum.
forget.
That is
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblumiest, man.
Yeah, I'll talk about it more in later rounds. So I'll eulogize Men in Black, and I gotta say, for a summer movie, you don't get a lot better than Men in Black. This is a tough matchup. A 6-3
An awesome
is
movie.
really tough. But Men in Black, yeah, because even as we said stuff earlier, the soundtrack, the song to that is a banger. Everything about that movie is fun. You could watch that movie and have a really good time watching it, which is, again, one of the things you look for in a summer movie. But it's not moving on, so I'll give my thoughts on Independence Day as we move on. Craig, do you got anything to say about this matchup?
Just that Lion King. How in the hell was that not in this round?
I knew that was coming.
But I will say that Men in Black, if you're looking at the two franchises and what came after them, which is the criteria I would have used, I would have said that Men in Black 2 and Men in Black 3 far superior to whatever the hell Independence Day 2 was.
Agreed. But
So
Your Scott is showing, Craig.
no, they're both good movies, and I guess I'll see if I vote for the Independence Day in the next one. But welcome to Earth.
All right, Jeremy. What's our last matchup in the 90s?
All right, our last matchup of the 90s bracket, we are going with M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense, which took out Michael Bay's The Rock, versus Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which destroyed Schwarzenegger's True Lies. Back to you, Lou.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm really surprised that The Sixth Sense dominated The Rock the way that it did.
Yeah, that's not right.
I love The Rock. The Rock is such a fun action movie.
So good.
So
He's such a good actor.
Hey, who? Nick Cage?
The Rock.
No, The Rock.
The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, that's why. So when you voted, did you actually just vote for The Rock? I
Craig,
like
be
The
honest.
Rock.
Be honest, Craig.
You know me. I'm not going to be mad at that.
No. I had seen The Rock and
Yes,
Sean
okay.
Connery and all of his glory.
Yeah, to me again. That's another great fun summer movie. But The Sixth Sense, was such a. I get like that is again. You talk
That took over
cultural
life, man.
Yeah.
That was the first like mega twist ending that everyone was like,
Ever.
holy shit, you got to see
Yeah.
this movie.
Even though Are You Afraid of the Dark did do it first.
Yeah, like twice.
And Scrubs did it better. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, so anyway, The Sixth Sense did move on, so it's going up against Terminator 2. That's not much of a surprise. Schwarzenegger versus Schwarzenegger. You're going to go with the more iconic Terminator over True Lies. But so let's break it down. Terminator 2 versus The Sixth Sense. Jeremy, what say you?
This is actually pretty tough because both of these. No, you see, Craig, you can't go by quality. Okay, look, like this. Both. Okay, what's the ultimate summer movie? Again, both of these took over the summer. Both of these took over the summer and dominated every aspect of the entertainment industry. That having been said, it really comes down to a battle of catchphrases for me. You know, do I like "I'll be back" more than "I see dead people"? And personally, I do not. I'm voting for The Sixth Sense here.
Ooh.
All right, Aaron, how about you?
This was for me pretty easy. I loved both movies. I loved the intelligence of Sixth Sense. And again, you're right. It like dominated that genre where it was like everyone like their mind was blowing at the end of this movie. But for me, that was a sleeper hit because of course, by word of mouth, it grew traction by people being like, you gotta fucking see this movie. You know, not because of like it being an event where I felt also I might be a little bit biased because when I was 9, my grandmother decided to take us all to the theater, me and my cousins who were like between the ages of 5 and 9 to go see Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So we all just sat there and sat in the big AMC and watched it on the screen. So it was quite an event for me, a summer event.
Hot take, your grandma's awesome.
Yeah.
She was super sweet. She would sneak us into movies too.
Hilarious.
We'd pay for one movie and then she'd be like, come on. So we'd go see like 3 other movies. Yeah, she was awesome. So Terminator 2 Judgment Day, hands down, was the event.
All right, Craig, how about you? We are at 1-1.
Oh,
Where do you
it's
go?
definitely by far Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Because it really truly still holds up as a movie. Sixth Sense, you can watch it once and then you know going into it exactly what you're going to get. Then talking about using my argument from the last time, M. Night Shyamalan has not had a great career after The Sixth Sense. It's been a pretty rocky road for him. But I think that James Cameron obviously has done pretty well for himself. But no, truly, Terminator 2 Judgment Day still parodied to this day. The Sixth Sense is in a comical fashion, not the way you want it to be. But it's easily Terminator 2 Judgment Day for me.
All right, Sarah, how about you? Terminator 2 or The Sixth Sense?
I hate Terminator, so I'm a horror person, so obviously I have to go with Sixth Sense. Yeah! Sorry, guys. I know it's gonna lose, and that's fine. And I get the Terminator thing. I've just never been.
Stick to your guns, girl. Stick to your guns.
I am. I love the Sixth Sense, and like you said, you can only watch it once. But I disagree with that because when you go back and watch it, you catch things that you didn't see before, and it's still happening. When I've watched that again recently, there's still been things that I missed the first. And years ago when I watched it, and it's like you can, I don't know, I just find it fascinating.
Did the plants actually kill him?
Shut up! I actually watched that the other day to see if it was as bad as I remembered, and it was
just to see if it was like.
Right. So I would say this. Yeah, I think. Look, if I was a McFarlane, if I was a member of that family, I could punish Terminator 2 for the rest of the franchise being just a mess.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, if we're talking future franchises, I mean, come on. That said, 1991 was owned by Terminator 2. That movie dominated. I saw that in the theater, and I probably shouldn't have. I saw both of these in the theater, I should say. I was blown away by the twist of The Sixth Sense, but I think Terminator 2 does hold up better on repeat viewings. And again, when we're talking like summer movies, horror movies are a weird thing, I think, for the summer. It's a weird genre because you do kind of want something that's maybe a little bit more fun, I guess, is what I look for in a summer blockbuster.
Don't find killing people fun?
I don't.
It's one of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah, well, hey, yeah. What
do you think she's really doing tomorrow?
Let's say. So for that reason, I'm going Terminator 2. And also, we're on that soundtrack kick. Let's talk about Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine. That song still slays. That's a great song. That video is awesome. And Schwarzenegger's iconic. So, and we haven't used that word yet in the first round. So
drink.
It wasn't even Jeremy.
All right.
By the way, just before we move on, Lou, look at the four filmmakers that made it through in the 90s bracket here. Spielberg, Michael Bay, Roland Emmerich, and James Cameron. You don't get more summer than that, man.
You don't. Those, that's some quintessential summer. I got to say, for my own personal bias, the 90s bracket to me was maybe the most embarrassment of riches.
And for something completely different.
With that in mind, let's go to the 2000s. Jeremy, let's talk about this first round matchup. Well,
do you want to announce this first, man?
I do, because this is our second of 2 DQs. So when the bracketologists put this together, Iron Man was a very clear number one when looking at all the lists. However, it was later learned to this bracketologist that Iron Man was not released in the time that this bracket had given parameters to. It's actually a early May release. It's first weekend of May.
No.
So if we're going to hold firm, and I'm a man of my principles, if nothing else, we had to disqualify Iron Man because if you bring in Iron Man, then you have to say, well, you should bring in the Avengers and Civil War and Age of Ultron and Infinity War. So I can't just let it slide by just because I happen to misread its release date. Okay. Yeah. Again, I'm blaming Lori Loughlin on this. She passed off Iron Man as a bona fide summer movie when it's a late spring movie. So because of that,
it didn't even ever play tennis.
It didn't. No, it never did. Court. There's a picture of it that's clearly photoshopped.
Yeah.
So sorry, Massimo. Iron Man is not making it into the second round. So because of that, it is disqualified. And so, Jeremy, tell us now what that gives us for our first matchup in the 2000s.
Well, that means that we have War of the Worlds, which was the 16 seed up against the number 1 seed Iron Man, pulling the UMBC and going on to the second round. It will go up against The Hangover, which took out the Wedding Crashers. This is going to be interesting. Lou, back to you.
All right, I'll go first, and I will say I got to give it to look. War of the Worlds probably shouldn't have even been here. Hangover shouldn't have been here. There's a reason it was a 16 seed. If we had seeded this differently, and War of the Worlds would not have made it. So for that reason, I'm going with The Hangover. It's a great comedy, and one of the tentpoles of a great summer is having that great comedy to hold up your summer with some variety. And The Hangover's hilarious. I think it still holds up. Sequels aside, we'll talk about that in later rounds. Anybody want to stand for War of the Worlds over The Hangover, or can we just rubber stamp this one?
Well, I don't think that you can. I don't know if I want to vote for it, but let me talk it out for just a second here. You've got Tom Cruise, who arguably one of the biggest summer blockbuster stars out there, and you also have that little girl that was huge at the time. What was her name?
Dakota Fanning.
I thought you were kidding. Dakota Fanning.
She still does things, right?
Yes.
No, anyway, but this movie was a big deal. I mean, it was a remake of the H.G. Wells classic, and The Hangover. If we're talking about what Aaron's been highlighting throughout the evening, The Hangover was definitely a quiet hit. It was not expected. It was word by mouth. It was not expected to make at all what it did, and it's a great movie. But War of the Worlds, although it got here by default, is still a solid flick. I do think that Hangover makes sense to advance, but I just wanted to at least throw out a bone to War of the Worlds because it's not as bad of a movie as people remember. I think people wanted that movie to be bad because it had Tom Cruise in it. And if you go back and watch that movie, it actually wasn't as bad as you think it was.
I agree with you, Craig.
You're
I don't
right.
hate it. Yeah.
Well, and it was right on the heels of Tom Cruise coming out with Katie Holmes and acting like a nut.
Yeah.
So people were like they were kind of discounting it before even seeing it. But you're right, because War of the Worlds, if you're looking at the criteria of a summer blockbuster, it was an event, huge amount of CGI. It's a Spielberg film. It's a huge amount of action. And so, and it was the huge production budget. So like, it really does meet all the criteria of that. And so you're right. I think you can't discount it just because people wanted to poo-poo Tom Cruise at the time. However, The Hangover, if you're going to go, what makes you feel like summer, there were a lot of people who saw The Hangover. And as that was getting passed on the word by mouth too, I feel like it did though create like, let's go to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the pool. Let's have a weekend, one last summer getaway or something like that for when it came out too. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, War of the Worlds is better than people remember, but at the same time, The Hangover has one of my favorite jokes of any movie of all time, which is the Holocaust ring joke, which I still laugh at nonstop every time I hear it. So, but Lou's right though, like that summer comedy, usually they do come out of nowhere. Usually they are just kind of like just kind of happen like that.
I feel like we don't have a ton of summer comedies on this list either. So I kind of like that that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
personally, I'm going with The Hangover here.
All right, Sarah, how about you? Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I think Craig's right. War of the Worlds is not as bad as people want it to be. It's, it has its moments and it's a watchable movie. But yeah, if we're going to go summer blockbuster here, I just think The Hangover really kind of encapsulates that. So that's a good one. Let's go for The Hangover.
All right, Jeremy, what's our next matchup?
All right. Well, this is probably the crazier of them. Some really hard fought wins here. So first of all, Spider-Man 2 took out the original X-Men to move on. And then Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban took out the Bourne Supremacy. It reigned supreme on this day. I'm torn here, Lou. Talk me through it, man.
Well, I gotta say this is an interesting matchup for me. I would have gone X-Men over Spider-Man 2 because I really do think the first X-Men movie is really an achievement. I think it holds up really well. It's still a lot of fun to watch. And Spider-Man 2, I think, is the best of that trilogy. But it is, I don't know if we weaken our thoughts on it, one because of Spider-Man 3 and because of the oversaturation of Spider-Man and because Spider-Man's been done so well recently. So I'm curious to see what everybody thinks. So I'm going to open it up first and let's start with Craig. Oh, wait, hold on. Jeremy,
you've got the biggest Harry Potter fan of all time right here. So
I
mean,
Sarah, is this even a choice for you?
No, this is no. Prisoner of Azkaban is probably one of the best ones.
Directed by a 2-time Oscar winner, Alfonso Cuarón.
Right. We also get the introduction of Sirius Black, who is my favorite character in the whole franchise. Harry Potter kicks Tobey Maguire's white ass right out of the ballpark on this one. So I don't need to go any farther.
Down goes Fraser. Woo.
All right. Okay. Now, Craig, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Spider-Man 2 is, I would still argue, even with Homecoming, I think that Spider-Man 2 is probably the better Spider-Man film. And I know that loses me some MCU cred, but wonderful job of bringing in some great actors together. And yes, it was definitely crapped upon with Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 2 was a really good, solid film. As far as the Harry Potter series is concerned, really enjoyed Prisoner of Azkaban. Goblet of Fire is by far my favorite book and my favorite movie. So I would say because Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man, Harry Potter is not my favorite Harry Potter. Harry Potter 3 is not my favorite Harry Potter. I will go with Spider-Man 2.
Ooh, them's are fighting words.
All right, Aaron. It's 1-1. What do you say?
I'm gonna admit this. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. I've got nothing wrong with it. I know. I felt like we were. I know. I've got nothing against Harry Potter. I really don't. I think it's a wonderful story. I just, as far as other stories, trilogies, movie series, book series, I've been usually more invested in other ones, but I don't have any issue with it per se. So I don't feel the personal investment and emotional investment that a lot of people do into the Harry Potter series. So for me, that made the decision for me to lean towards Spider-Man 2. Again, I liked that series. I thought Tobey Maguire was a good Spider-Man. I liked the characters. I liked the plot lines. It's a ton of CGI. It was a huge summer event. It was a summer blockbuster for me. Whereas the Harry Potter series didn't ever feel like blockbuster material. It was just, they were events, but not like something that I thought, it's summer, here comes Harry Potter.
What's really interesting about it, you bring up a good point, and sorry, I know I'm speaking out of turn, but they because ABC Family has in the now Freeform has purchased the Harry Potter franchise, it seems like they put that on to every event that they can. So it's like your favorite Halloween movie, Harry Potter, your favorite Christmas movie,
it's because
Harry
it
Potter.
encapsulates all holidays and all times and all feelings.
So it doesn't seem nearly as summer to me. Like because I know that some of the latter ones came out in November. I'm surprised that Azkaban actually came out in the summer. So
it's interesting actually when you look at the release dates, because they're kind of all over the place, and I don't know if that had to do with like other theatrical release dates, but you're right, it's not consistent.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm voting for Spider-Man 2 to advance because, this is the only Harry Potter movie to be released in the summer. So I do think when you look at the Harry Potter franchise, you don't necessarily think of summer. It's not the summer blockbuster type. It's and I know a lot of people regard this as the best Harry Potter film, but Spider-Man, that whole series was a summer movie franchise. Spider-Man 2 is the best of that. So I'm voting for Spider-Man. So it's going to move on. But Jeremy, do you have anything you want to say before we move on?
I'm just going to be a good husband and say you're all wrong and crazy. So,
okay. All right. Jeremy, what's our next matchup?
Just a second here.
While he's doing that, I just wanted to let you know that Crap My Dad Makes Me Watch is watching on Facebook, on YouTube right now. He had some comments saying that The Hangover is amazing and War of the Worlds gets more hate than it deserves. But he also says Azkaban sets the tone for the next 5 films, while Spider-Man 2 is the greatest comic book movie ever, or one of the greatest comic book achievements ever. So I guess he agrees with both of our assessments.
Hard to fault him there. All right.
Let's
get some more matchups. Here we go. We've got Mamma Mia that took out Sex and the City, the movie. Sarah had some thoughts on that one. It's going to go up against Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which took out Michael Bay's Transformers. I feel some harsh things coming. Lou.
Yeah, I got no problem with either of these advancing. I think, and again, some people inquired about my bracketology on Facebook, and I will say I put Mamma Mia and Sex and the City up against each other for a reason, and that they were both event movies for women. And I think it was important to at least have some representation in the second round, at least, of films that seem to be written and designed and produced exactly for more of a female audience. And so Sex and the City versus Mamma Mia. Interestingly enough, some people didn't realize that there was a Sex and the City movie, which I was kind of surprised about.
If you're a Sex and the City fan,
when they saw Sex and the City, I don't know if they thought they were voting for the TV show versus a movie.
Oh,
anyway, that being said, and Transformers as a franchise, I'm just going to say is trash. But that first that first one is way better than most people give it credit for. So I will say, that movie is a surprise, and I think if it had stopped at that one, we might think better of it. But we don't. It didn't, so we don't. So we're going to move on. So that gets us to this matchup. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl versus Mamma Mia, the movie. Aaron, what say you?
Mamma Mia, to me, is a musical, whether it was an event or not. And a musical is hard for me to ever, I can't think of a musical in a theatrical release that would be considered a blockbuster. And Mamma Mia, if any of them, Mamma Mia is definitely not one of them. So hands down, that would be Pirates of the Caribbean.
All right. So Craig, I'm interested to get your thoughts because we have a Disney franchise versus a musical. I feel that this is somewhat
close to home.
This is hitting close to home to you, so I am very curious to see what you have to say.
This is where I have to throw my sequel thing out of the window because the sequels have not been very good. But the Pirates of the Caribbean, if you think about that, it was a ride concept that was brought to Disneyland by Xavier Atencio and a couple of other Imagineers, and to make that into what became a huge summer blockbuster is a pretty impressive feat. Because obviously Pirates, you've got something to work with there, but to take this storyline that was real to only the Disney parks and then bring it to more of a several billion-dollar franchise of movies, it's just extremely impressive. So I have to go with Johnny Depp, I have to go with Orlando Bloom, and oh my goodness, I have to go with Keira Knightley and say Pirates of the Caribbean.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I love musical theater as much as the next guy. Well,
me too.
At least a couple of you on this podcast. But
I think that's all of us.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like I think I saw it in the theater like 4 or 5 times that summer. Like legitimately, it was just like the thing to do to go see that. Like it was just a huge deal, and I didn't even remember that Mamma Mia came out in the summer, to be honest. So
no, I had no idea.
Yeah. So I'm going to vote for absolutely Pirates of the Caribbean in this respect.
All right. So Pirates is moving on. Jeremy, do you get anything you want to add?
Absolutely not. Just echo Sarah that, I saw that movie so many times in the theater. I was transfixed by it. I love pirate movies anyway. And I just think it was perfect summer fare. Like you said, escapism and enjoyableness and an Oscar nominated performance from Johnny Depp. So what more do you need?
And almost 2 decades worth of Captain Jack Sparrow Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
For
so much guyliner. So
much guyliner.
All right, Jeremy, last matchup of the 2000s. What do we got?
Last matchup of the 2000s. It's going to find us going with Finding Nemo, which took out Up in the first round, going up against The Dark Knight, which prevailed over itself in Batman Begins. So, Lou, explain yourself.
Well, Pixar's had a lot of summer releases, and there's one coming up later in this bracket, but there were some that didn't even make this bracket. Pixar's done a really good job of always releasing some movies in the summer to maximize their saturation and their dollar. So it made sense to put Finding Nemo versus Up, and of course, it made sense to put the 2 of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies in, and the 2 that people are arguing with the 2 best of the trilogy. So I don't find any fault there. So I already see Craig hyperventilating, so I'm just going to go right to him. Comic book love versus Disney love, man. We're just really stretching you
are torn like Natalie.
Your loyalties all over the first. What do you got? The Dark Knight or Finding Nemo?
Dark Knight is just such a fantastic movie. Obviously Oscar award-winning performance by Heath Ledger. Whether or not he would have earned that had he been living, probably up for debate. But just great through and through, really nails the character of a darker Batman that still doesn't feel the need to kill people. And obviously a great Joker and a really good Harvey Dent, because you kind of forget about him in that movie. All that being said, I am the Disney Pixar guy.
Oh, come on.
When you think about Finding Nemo, and the Finding Nemo spurned a huge sequel, it completely reinvigorated Pixar as a brand, because at the time, Michael Eisner was saying, Pixar was going to go under because of Finding Nemo. He was like, they have this fish movie coming out. No one's going to go see it. And this movie, if you ask a lot of people that really enjoy Pixar, was a turning point for the company because they couldn't really get their foothold after Toy Story in, you know, A Bug's Life and a couple of the others that came after. But then Finding Nemo really, they started to hit their stride again. So I would, out of this bracket, I would vote for Finding Nemo.
Oh, wow. Jeremy, you had a strong reaction. What do you say?
Here, let me tell you why you're wrong, Craig. Because you're wrong. It's bad. It's freaking Batman. It's The Dark Knight. This is literally I would say, the best comic book movie ever made. It's perfect from start to finish. This is auteur filmmaking brought to blockbuster sensibilities. It's a mix that should not work, and it incredibly does. You nuts. It's The Dark Knight.
Sarah, how about you?
I agree with Jeremy.
Thank you, baby.
I just really, I'm a Batman person, as from per my earlier vote, and this one is just, I don't know, it just, whoa. I mean, it takes Batman, it takes this all to a whole new level, and it just has amazing performances. It just dominated. It's like, I think it's, besides Singing in the Rain, Jeremy's favorite movie. He can literally almost say every line to it. We've watched it a lot, and I find more nuance in every time I watch it. So I just think it's just, I love Finding Nemo. It's a super cute movie, but this just kicks its ass for me.
All right, Aaron, how about you?
I think Craig brings up some very good points about Pixar. Like I did not know that about Pixar. And that is, it's a great movie. However, The Dark Knight, my husband brought up a great point in that what The Dark Knight does is bring so much depth to those characters that a lot of times why Marvel fares better than DC is because in movies because their characters don't have a lot of depth. It's not about their backstory and stuff like that. And so The Dark Knight really did a great job of like, you felt like you had an intimate relationship with the Joker and that like creepy, like he had you the whole movie. I don't know. And Harvey Dent.
Yeah, Aaron Eckhart, the lost performance of that movie. It's incredible.
Yeah. He really, it's fantastic. And as far as summer events go, The Dark Knight's got me there.
Yep. All right, so that's a consensus. Dark Knight's going to advance, and that's going to get us out of the 2000s. All right, now we're into the 2010s, and this is a fun group because we don't have the hindsight of history as much as we do in some of these other ones. So, Jeremy, take us through the 2010s and get us to our first matchup.
Absolutely, sir. Well, as you can see here, we've got the king of the box office from the 2010s, Jurassic World, taking out Despicable Me to get to the second round. And then Inception took out Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible Fallout to move into the second round, setting up an incredibly unique matchup here. Lou, tell them more about it.
Tom Cruise just getting trounced on here.
Right?
Yeah, Tom Cruise can't get much love in this blockbuster field, which is crazy when you think about it. But
he kind of is.
He's a goofball, but he's a good actor. I think
and he's in a lot of blockbuster movies.
Yeah, so that's crazy. But yeah, this is a tough matchup for me.
This is my toughest matchup, Lou. Because I to jump over.
No, go for it. You start. Go ahead.
This is, Jurassic World came out of nowhere for me. Like I like Aaron, I have an intense love of Jurassic Park. And so when I heard this movie was coming out, I was like really excited. Like, oh, we're getting the Jurassic series back. And that movie was great. I found it very entertaining. And $400 or $220 million later, opening weekend. But Inception is literally one of my favorite films of all time. And again, it was one of those that came out of nowhere. But I think it is one of the most brilliant films ever made too. And I think that word of mouth of that summer really made that movie what it was. I might be in the minority here, but I think I'm voting for Inception here.
All right, Sarah, what do you say?
This is a tough one because, everything that Jeremy said is right. They're both great movies. Jurassic World was, I just feel like long awaited because the Jurassic Park franchise is just such a big deal. And Inception is just a really good movie. It's a real thinker, but I think along the lines of summer blockbuster, I'm gonna have to go with Jurassic World because I think it encapsulates that a little bit better. Inception is, for better lack of terminology, kind of hard to understand sometimes. First, I mean, I remember going to see it with my mom, and God love her, my mom was just like, "What?" The whole time. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I just think if we're going to talk about a summer blockbuster, just like the long awaited return of the Jurassic Park franchise, I'm going to go with Jurassic World.
All right, Aaron, how about you?
Okay. So obviously my heartstrings were very much pulled by the return of Jurassic World. I was pregnant. I was hormonal. I was emotional. I had an extra large popcorn. And I really did love everything about it. But Inception totally shocked me in the sense that it was marketed. They were both marketed really well. Inception was coming out. And I think why I would go with Inception is Inception created intrigue. Like Jurassic World, I knew I was getting dinosaurs. I knew I was getting action. I knew I was getting Jurassic Park. But Inception and the layers and the trailers and everything created a ton of intrigue that when I saw that, I was like, I had to see that movie, you know? And then what I think is actually super remarkable about Inception is that by word of mouth, like you're saying, where people are like, you got to go see that movie, it actually made back its production budget in 2 weekends.
Yeah.
Which is like, for a lot of those sleeper hits or word of mouth, it's like over a longer amount of time. And so when I got in there and I saw Inception, it became one of those movies where I was like, I couldn't imagine not seeing it in a theater.
Yeah.
Once I was surrounded by the experience, and it was so different that I've got to go with Inception.
All right, Craig, what do you say?
I think I might have been dreaming about this last night, but I'm not sure. I might still be in that dream. But really, truly, folks, Jurassic World had one of the highest, I believe it's the second or maybe the third highest opening weekend
the highest
of all time.
Yeah.
And so obviously Force Awakens comes out that December and knocks it out. But and if we're talking about summer blockbusters, Chris Pratt is becoming the Tom Cruise where, you know, instead of it being Scientology, it's kind of his Christianity that maybe people are kind of questioning. But at the same time, like Jurassic World brought us back to that nostalgic feel. A lot of really great things happened in that movie. And they took a fun turn with it in the sequel. Inception is a great piece. I come back to our argument that we had in the 90s about Forrest Gump and Armageddon. And we said that, you know, Forrest Gump is a much better film, but Armageddon's the better blockbuster. I would say that in this case, Inception is the better film, but Jurassic World is by far the biggest blockbuster.
Yeah, and I got to agree with you, Craig. So I am voting for Jurassic World to move on. I agree. I think Inception is a better movie. And if you ask me which one would I rather sit down and watch right now, it'd be Inception.
Or how much time you got.
Well, yeah, right. But I would say, and Jurassic World didn't wow me because I do think it hit a lot of the same beats of Jurassic Park, which we'll talk about, I think, in future rounds. And I not to put my Scott hat on, but I do think the sequel is actually kind of better. But Inception's great, but Jurassic Park is the biggest summer movie of this decade. So it's almost $1 billion. And you know, when MCU movies are not releasing their movie in the summer proper anymore, it kind of owns the summer. So I gotta at least let it go on for now. So Jurassic's gonna go on, and that's gonna get us to our next matchup. What do we got, Jeremy?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got Crazy Rich Asians, which comes out of nowhere to beat the Twilight Saga Eclipse. Not that I'm crying over that. They'll go to the second round to take on Guardians of the Galaxy, which cannibalized its MCU brother Spider-Man Homecoming. So here we go. Let's do it.
Yeah, I got a question. How much of this was pro Crazy Rich Asians
or anti-Twilight?
Versus anti-Twilight?
It's a good question.
Look, because how many people just saw Twilight and were like, whatever is up against it, I'm voting against it.
I mean, Sarah, you loved those movies, so
No, I
was
don't.
it?
I read the books
No,
long
I
before the
don't.
movies came out, but I mean, if you're going blockbusters, I'm like, come on. I mean, I get that Crazy Rich Asians was a pretty big deal this past year, but Twilight was like a freaking phenomenon.
Yeah,
Those were
it
events,
was.
yeah.
It really was. So, I mean, I feel like that was kind of, you're right. Like, is it anti-Twilight or pro Crazy Rich Asians? I can't even say it. But yeah, I guess as long as I'm talking here, I'm just going to vote Guardians of the Galaxy because it is one of the few comic book movies that I do like.
Yeah,
So,
actually, this is her favorite comic book movie in the MCU movie
because of the
she likes
soundtrack
most.
mainly.
Yeah,
But-
so
Such a good soundtrack.
Such a good soundtrack.
Yeah, I listen to that soundtrack all the time. I'm voting Guardians too. Sorry, I'm just jumping in.
No, go for it. That's fine. I don't know if we're going to have much debate. Aaron, you got anything you want to say?
No, Guardians. I was super pissed because whenever we go to movies, my husband and I look at each other in the trailers to be like, are we going to see that together?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
like,
We do
no.
too.
So we did the like look at each other and we were like, you know, I looked at him like, yeah, we're going to, I can't wait to see this. And he was going, that doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look good. Then he came home one day and he goes, listen, I got to tell you something. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. And I was like, I told you I wanted to see that. And he's like, and it was awesome. I'm like, you are the worst. So got to go Guardians.
Yeah. Okay. Just
All right, Craig, you got. I know where you're voting. Do we need? Do you get? You're just gonna save it for the second round. You get anything else you want to say?
A couple quick things. First of all, friend of the pod, Courtney Inlow, did a marathon viewing of the Twilight series and put that up on Sci-Fi. So go check
Nice.
that out.
God bless her soul.
Second, Crazy Rich Asians did a lot for Asian actors in particular. A lot of the cast was saying, you know, it was much like how Black Panther, black actors didn't have to say, oh, I'm just the black actor in this film. Crazy Rich Asians, the Asian actors didn't have to say, oh, I'm just the Asian actor in XYZ film. That being said, Guardians of the Galaxy, I have been quoted on this podcast for years saying is my generation's Star Wars because it's the space opera for our time. And so it has to be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I can't disagree, and I'll talk more about Guardians in the next round. So I'll just say this about Crazy Rich Asians. If you only voted for it because of a Twilight bias and you didn't actually see it. It's great. It's really good.
It's really good.
And it fills the summer rom-com void that all good summers, I think, have. All good summers have a good rom-com. They have a good action. They have a good comedy. They have, all of those. Like that checks the box of a good summer, and this is a great romantic comedy. It's funny. It's great. You should see Crazy Rich Asians. It's better than even maybe the title suggests. So that said, I'm glad to see it advance over Twilight, but Guardians has got to move on. So let's get to our next matchup, Jeremy.
Absolutely. All right. Well, to close out, or no, not to close out, but we have Toy Story 3, which took out its Pixar brethren Incredibles 2, and then another upset, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, taking out Fast and Furious 6. The Rock body slammed somebody because of that one.
That's the second one, right?
It's the third.
Dawn is the third?
I believe Dawn is the third.
It's Rise and then Dawn and then something, isn't it?
Isn't it Planet of the Apes,
War,
Rise,
War,
Dawn?
Oh, yeah. So Dawn is second.
Yeah.
All right.
This, this one's hard for me because.
No, it's not.
No, I mean, again, Craig, quality is not the metric here, okay? And I'll be the minority here because the problem is I remember seeing the first Planet of the Apes remake with Matt Reeves, and I thought that was it just shocked me how good it was. And I remember being way more excited for this than I was for Toy Story 3. So I'm going with the Apes.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
I think this Apes trilogy is awesome. I love it. And I loved all three of them equally. I thought they were just really great movies, especially compared to the predecessor of Marky Mark's Apes film. But if we're talking summer blockbuster, I have to go with Toy Story 3 because it was just, I saw it several times in the theater, even though I knew it was going to rip my heart out every time. And it was just, I don't know. It's just it's just a great movie, I thought end to the Toy Story franchise.
Yeah.
But even that said, I just think it in the criteria that we're talking, Toy Story 3 wins.
All right, Aaron, how about you?
I gotta go with Toy Story 3. I think the characters are more, even though that this new trilogy of Planet of the Apes is better, but the characters are more beloved. It was a more anticipated event for that spanned across many demographics.
Okay. Yeah, and Craig, I don't know. I don't need to hear you vote on this. We know where you're at. Yeah, it's Toy Story 3. It is like, again, I know Planet of the Apes is maybe more the traditional summer blockbuster, but Pixar, like we said earlier, has done a lot for the summer franchise, and Toy Story 3 is probably one of its best movies ever. So why not have and it's maybe it's the really only really family movie that we're going to see advance. So we're just going to move it on here, and that's going to get us to our last matchup of the round of 32. Jeremy, what do we got?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to scroll down here, and we got Bridesmaids taking out Magic Mike. Oh, Matthew McConaughey is crying in a corner somewhere. It will go up against Wonder Woman, which took out Captain America, the first Avenger, in the battle of the superheroes there. Lou, back to you.
I'm going to forward this over to Craig because I believe he has some thoughts on this.
One of these movies has a Oscar-nominated actress in it, and the other one is Wonder Woman because the Academy is awful. Awful. Everything about Bridesmaids. She pooped in a sink and got nominated for an Oscar. We don't need Melissa McCarthy in our life. She should have stayed back on TV where she was better.
And St. James, don't hate.
Wonder Woman obviously advances here. If any of you vote for Bridesmaids, I'm going to freak. And that doesn't mean you should do it because I would freak.
Not to say you're not disincentivizing me here, man.
Sorry. So here's what I'm going to say about this. I'm interested that you stan Wonder Woman so hard, Craig, because I'm going to bring some receipts here. When it came to the actual Facebook poll,
I 100% voted for Captain America.
You voted for Captain America.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that because what was my response to you on that poll? The first superhero that I knew of or that I really attached to was The Rocketeer. And The Rocketeer was directed by Joe Johnston, very much in the same post-World War II, during World War II style of Captain America, the First Avenger. Captain America being my favorite superhero. It also told his origin story in such a great way. But Wonder Woman won, so I'm not going to take my ball and go home. Her movie is wonderful, and not to have a pun there, but it was a great movie. Gal Gadot is a perfect Wonder Woman, and it easily advances over Bridesmaids.
Well, I'll say this about Bridesmaids because I don't think it's advancing. It's another one of those in terms of big comedies that made a big impact when it came out and did very well. And again, it was another event movie for females, a female-led comedy written by a woman, starring an all-female leading cast. So I mean, I love Bridesmaids more. I know, Craig, you're not a fan, but sink pooping aside, I think it's a great comedy.
You gotta go.
Yeah. But that said, I'm going to go Wonder Woman 2 because it's a great superhero movie. It's the one good superhero movie the DC universe has given us since the close of the Nolan Batman franchise. So I'm going to go with it. Aaron, how about you?
Obviously it caught a lot of flack for the way I voted earlier between Bridesmaids and Magic Mike. And Captain America and Wonder Woman, because Craig, I voted the same way where I voted for Captain America. But I also voted for Magic Mike because neither of those movies were blockbusters to me. So I felt like really it was different. I had to use different criteria. But with both of those against each other, I agree. Bridesmaids is clever. It's funny. But it was kind of one of those word by mouth. Like I didn't see that movie until September. or October, and it was like, oh, you got to see this movie. It's funny. And I think I saw it on a plane. Whereas Gal Gadot is totally carrying the entire DC universe right now on her amazing bronze shoulders. And that is a quintessential, like that movie is a blockbuster. And if that's your like female representation, like she's blockbuster all the way, that movie.
All right. So that's 3. Jeremy, Sarah, you got anything you want to contribute? You want to move on to the Sweet 16?
Nope. Wonder Woman's my vote.
I haven't even seen Wonder Woman, but I wasn't going to pick Bridesmaids anyway. You're welcome, Craig.
And I will say, like, when we first started dating, she tried to watch Captain America for me, just to be a good girlfriend and stuff. And she fell asleep like every time she tried to watch it.
I kept starting at like 35 minutes and then 37 minutes.
And I'm going to say this about that first round matchup.
I always like, she tried to like do it like at night and stuff too. And like the DVD player would just always be cycling through the Captain America.
No, he'd be like, what part are you on? I was like, I don't know. The red guy was on there.
Yeah, that first Captain America movie it's fine, but it's not even it's the 3rd best Captain America movie.
So gosh, I have a hard time.
All right. That's a whole other digression. Discussion. That's for next month's podcast, which we'll talk about at the end of this. But okay, Jeremy.
I had forgotten that Iron Man came out, that it preceded Captain America, which is why I also voted Captain America. Then I was like, oh, you were not the first Avenger.
Yeah, there was. I think that there was all 4 of them. So it was Iron Man, and then Hulk, and then Thor, and then Captain America, then Avengers, right? So
Eric Bana Thor. Yeah.
No, the
Ed Norton.
Okay, the Ed Norton Hulk.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. We are in now our final 4 for each decade. What we're going to do, we've talked a lot about these movies. So what I want to do is to get us into the Elite 8, I'm going to rapid fire through the Sweet 16. But Jeremy, before we do that, let's get us our 70s and 80s matchups.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get ourselves here. So back up here. Our first matchup here is going to be Jaws versus Back to the Future. And then coming up hot on that is Ghostbusters versus Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Everyone start your craziness.
Yeah, so rapid fire, just off the cuff between these matchups. All right, Jaws versus Back to the Future. We've talked about both of these. Aaron, what do you say?
I got to go Jaws.
Ugh.
This is all going to start to become Sophie's choice for me.
Yeah.
All right. Craig?
The OG, Jaws.
All right. Jeremy?
Back to the Future.
Sarah?
Back to the Future.
Oh, it's down to me. Jaws versus Back to the Future. What are you people doing to me?
Do the right thing, Lou.
Oh, okay.
The original Blockbuster. By the way,
you gotta choose.
Crap my dad makes me watch says it is the first Blockbuster. And he's right.
Right. Look.
He or she. Sorry.
No one's denying it. Right?
I'm assigning gender to a genderless avatar.
It is the first Blockbuster. That doesn't make it the best Blockbuster.
Right.
Back to the Future.
Yes.
It's moving on. Okay.
Jeez. You guys knocked out my Harry Potter. Let me have this one.
Sorry. All right. Ryan Luton somewhere has thrown his laptop. But anyway. All right, Jeremy, next matchup.
All right, everyone. We're going back to it. It is going to be...
No.
Got the wrong one.
Get it together.
Ghostbusters versus Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Another Sophie's choice. I don't know.
This one's friggin' brutal. I don't want to be the tiebreaker on this one. So... But I don't know what I'm choosing yet. So, Sarah, you go.
I'm going Ghostbusters. I love Star Wars, but this is not my favorite of the Star Wars. So if I'm picking that way, I'm going to go with Ghostbusters because no explanation needed. That's my choice.
Okay, Craig?
Star Wars. It's Star Wars.
All right. Jeremy?
Star Wars. It's got to be.
Aaron?
My kids are named Ben and Luke. It's Star Wars.
All right.
This is information that would have been better at the beginning.
I'm kind of.
Well, our son is named Zool, so
Yeah, I mean, what?
Oh, I would admire you
Zool
so
goes to
much.
Geckner. I mean, come on.
Zool Geckner. I would co-sign that. Okay, but thank you for all just making me not have to choose. So by taking that out of my hands. All right, that gets us to the 90s. Jeremy, what are we looking at?
Yep, we have. I don't have the graphics yet, but this is Back to the Future versus
Nope.
Star Wars
Nope,
Episode 4.
nope.
We're moving to the 90s.
Oh, we're moving to the 90s. Goodness.
The way that a basketball tournament works, Jeremy, is that all of the teams play in the Sweet 16 before advancing to the Elite Eight.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is what happens in sports ball.
Here we go. Jurassic Park going up against Armageddon. Everybody choose.
Aaron?
Jurassic Park.
Craig?
Jurassic Park.
Jeremy?
Park.
Sarah?
Park.
Yeah, I gotta go with Park too. If this is Jurassic Park versus Speed, you might hear me. You might hear my contrarian nature, but I can't. I like Jurassic. Armageddon's a good blockbuster. Jurassic's better. It's got to move on.
Dinosaurs.
All right. And our next one in the 90s, Jeremy.
All right, the last one here, Independence Day versus Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Either way, a day is going on.
All right, I'm starting with this one. I'm going Independence Day. Jeremy, what do you say?
Oh, this one sucks. I'm going Independence Day.
All right, Sarah?
Independence Day.
Oh.
Ooh, doesn't even matter, but Aaron?
Independence Day.
Look at that. Sweep it.
Sweep it, Craig, or splitting it?
I would have went with Judgment Day. Better film, in my opinion. IMO, better film.
Oh, you and your once a McFarlane, always a McFarlane. All right.
Our viewer, he agrees with me.
Okay.
And it is a he. I did confirm. Male.
Okay. All right. Let's move to the 2000s. Jeremy, what do we got?
Absolutely. Our first matchup, The Hangover versus Spider-Man 2. Comedy versus action.
All right, Aaron, what do you say?
The Hangover.
Woo. I agree with you. I'm going Hangover. I think it holds up better than Spider-Man 2 does. I think it's Spider-Man's been done better. Craig?
Oh, it's definitely Spider-Man 2.
Right.
I'll have whatever you guys are having over there.
That's some Game of Thrones scotch over here. That's some White Walker product placement. Johnny Walker sponsor us. Anyway, Sarah, what do you say?
You guys kicked out Harry Potter in favor of Spider-Man 2, so it's Hangover.
The Hangover is gonna
What absurd way.
And I agree that there are much better Spider-Mans. Toby is not my favorite. So.
Jeremy, your vote doesn't count, but what would it be?
It would have been Spider-Man 2. This is
unbelievable.
It's not.
This is ridiculous.
There's enough comic book movies and all of this, and we didn't have one room for little lightning bolt Scar, the boy who lived. No. Bye.
That is a vengeance win.
You know,
inconceivable.
I love that we have a comedy making it to the Sweet 16. All right, that's the only legit comedy it's probably going to make it. So, all right, Jeremy, what's our last matchup in the 2000s?
I really can't choose this one, guys. It's Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl versus The Dark Knight. Oh, somebody else go.
I'll go. I was the Disney Pixar proponent before, but in this matchup, to me, it's easily The Dark Knight. It is the better film and the bigger blockbuster.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
I agree with Craig. I just really like this movie, and I just think it was a huge deal, so I'm going for The Dark Knight.
All right, Aaron?
I agree with Craig and Sarah. It's The Dark Knight.
Yeah. All right, that's a consensus. So, Jeremy, you don't even have to vote. We spared you that.
Thank you so much.
Dark Knight's going to advance. I would move it on as well as I just kind of like it better than Pirates. I think Pirates is maybe more fun.
It is. I was going to say fun.
Yeah.
And that'll be a discussion maybe we'll have in future rounds. But for now, let's get over to the 2010s. Jeremy.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to kick it off here with the matchup of Jurassic World versus Guardians of the Galaxy. As I read these are terrible. Oh,
Okay, so it's a Pratt off, everyone.
It is a Pratt off.
We've got our first.
I know that.
We had a
Dude.
a Smith off earlier. We've got a Pratt off here. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go with the one that's the better Pratt role, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a good representation of the MCU. It's a lot more fun. I think it's I would rather sit through it than Jurassic Park or Jurassic World again. So it's getting my vote. Aaron, how about you?
My heart wants to go Jurassic World, but my head goes Guardians.
All right, Craig.
I have to ask myself, what will he be known for, as Star-Lord or as whatever the hell his name is in Jurassic Park?
Owen.
Owen, yes.
So it'll be Star-Lord, Guardians
You're
of the
right.
Galaxy.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah. Gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what his character's name is
No idea.
in Jurassic World. It's serious Chris Pratt. That's his name. Okay, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, it's already decided, but I would have gone with Guardians too. We already have Jurassic Park in there, and it's a better representation of the franchise. So Guardians.
Would you agree, Jeremy?
Yep, Guardians.
All right. So that gets us. What's our last matchup, Jeremy?
Here we go. Toy Story 3 versus Wonder Woman. Craig's head is probably literally exploding.
Craig, do you need a minute?
No, it's an easy choice for me. Toy Story 3, should have won Best Picture that year. It was nominated, but yeah, Toy Story 3, encapsulation of a childhood. Sorry, Toy Story 3.
Woo. All right, Craig or Jeremy, how about you?
Wonder Woman.
Ugh.
Woo. Sarah?
Wrong. Toy Story 3.
Oh, come on.
Aaron?
Wonder Woman was the better blockbuster.
Oh.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
I hate all of you.
Mm-mm.
You're making me be the tiebreaker. There's never been a time I haven't cried at the end of Toy Story 3.
Right?
That movie gets me every
The No Man's Land
friggin'
sequence, Luke. Come on.
It's so good.
Whereas Wonder Woman is a very good movie up until the final 10 minutes because that CGI is garbage and the villain is kind of garbagey too.
Yeah,
I'm feeling some swaying there.
I don't care so much about that because I look. What to me is more of a summer movie? What's more of a
summer blockbuster?
I'm sorry. We gotta go Wonder Woman. I'm gonna go Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I hate myself a little bit for that, but not much because look, Wonder Woman.
You might as well just let those toys burn up in the incinerator. You heartless fools.
Look, hey,
I just don't understand how all you think that like family-friendly entertainment is not something that makes summer entertainment.
It isn't, but Toy Story itself like has that such a serious, dramatic end to it. I don't want to go to a summer movie and cry my eyes out. That's a summer.
Good point.
I want to be happy.
You want to come out and kick some shit over and be like, yeah,
it's
fucking summer.
Thank you. Fucking summer. Thank you.
You know what, Craig? If nothing else, it showed all these little kids that this is what happens to your toys. They get incinerated.
No, they go to little cute girls named Bonnie with
when
rainbows.
Summer ends and you go to college, kids. This is what happens.
All right. No. Okay. All right. So now we blew through the Sweet 16. So let's get us to the Elite 8. Jeremy, what's our Elite 8? These are the finals for each decade, by the way. So the finals for the 70s and 80s bracket. Jeremy, what do we got?
We've got Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future versus George Lucas's Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Don't be silly, guys. Don't be silly.
Okay. So what is it? Craig?
Easily Star Wars. It's Star Wars. It defined a genre of film in the space opera, but also just sci-fi in general. It launched Lucasfilm.
It forced us to watch three really bad other blockbusters.
Yeah, we all kept going.
Easily. I mean, we start to lose credibility if we don't go with Star Wars here.
Aaron, what do you say?
I'm with Craig here. It's Star Wars. It's the summer event. It's the franchising that happened afterwards. It's the story. It's Star Wars.
Sarah, how about you?
I'm gonna be an asshole and pick Back to the Future.
Hey,
I love Star Wars. We have to have a dissenter in here. Y'all are gonna pick it. I don't know of.
No, who knows if they're all gonna pick it? Because you got your husband over there that's
Listen,
crazy, and you got this bracket guy who doesn't even know when movies come out. So how do we trust his opinion?
How dare you?
I
Lori
love Star
Loughlin
Wars
tricked
too,
me.
but I don't.
Craig, I am hurt that you think that I would choose against one of the biggest film franchises of all time because I am. I'm voting Back to the Future.
You are? Oh no, I'm sorry.
Mostly because I want to make Lou just kvetch over there.
Why do you like?
Man, the claws have really come out.
I'm not going last anymore. This friggin' sucks. Okay, so I got to talk this through for a minute. Because, yeah, Star Wars right after Jaws, like Star Wars follows the template of Jaws for the summer blockbuster, the major rollout, but it adds the licensing, it adds the merchandising, it adds all of that. Star Wars is ubiquitous. The whole franchise is ubiquitous because it's a summer movie. Now, in recent years, the Star Wars franchise has shifted to being more of a Christmas release. All of the more recent Star Wars movies have been Christmas, which makes me feel like Star Wars is less of a summer film. Back to the Future, released during the summer. All of those movies released in the summer months. 2 and 3 released on Memorial Day weekends. That's a franchise steeped in the summer. Son of a bitch. I hate this.
Do you want
your feelings, Lou?
Do you want to know the comments?
On
sure. The YouTube?
Sure.
It says A New Hope. If Jaws wasn't the best blockbuster, Star Wars carried the banner bigger and better after it.
All right. Well, since we only have one person actually commenting and doing the live stream with us, I'm going to take that into consideration. I'm going to go Star Wars.
That's fine.
It's the better call.
It's a win either way.
It's a win either way. That is a tough matchup. That is a very tough matchup.
That is a very tough matchup.
So I'm going to go Star Wars. It's going to the Final Four. All right, let's move on. Jeremy, what do we got?
All right. We've got Jurassic Park going up against Independence Day. Is it just me or are these matchups getting harder?
100%. And I'm going to start now.
Good idea.
1, because I don't want to be the tiebreaker, and 2, because I think I'm going to lose this one. Because I've saved this story till this moment. One of our contributors, Phil Rockwell, has, I think, the exact same story that I do with this movie, to the point where I think we might have actually been in the same screening together in the Quad Cities. I saw Independence Day in the theater on July 3rd. We do fireworks in the Quad Cities on the 3rd of July, not on the 4th, because for reasons, whatever. So I watched fireworks explode and then went to a midnight showing of Independence Day.
I saw Midnight Independence Day too.
And that theater was more alive and enthusiastic than any movie I've ever been to. The audience and the reception. And so my experience of seeing that movie in a theater is one of the best experiences I've ever had of any movie ever. It's not a better movie than Jurassic Park. I would never say that. But like for a summer getaway film, like just turn your brain off and just go along with the ride. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, aliens, explosions, all that sort of stuff. It is so much fun that it is dumb. It is like, it does not like, it's just not as good of a movie, but it's a better summer movie. So for that reason, and the experience that I can harken back to, I'm voting for Independence Day to go to the Final Four. Craig, your thoughts?
I would vote Independence Day. And the reason for that is because in my lifetime, probably not a bigger summer blockbuster movie that I can remember. And distinctly, now granted, it obviously takes place during the 4th of July, but like distinctly know that this is absolutely a summer movie. Because a lot of the other release dates and things like that, a lot of the movies we've went through, I didn't remember that they released in summer. You definitely know that ID4 came out on July 3rd, leading into Independence Day. So Yeah, it's got to be Independence Day.
Aaron, what say you?
Okay. So
I won.
it's hard. Well, no, but I have very specific memories of both. I remember the same as you, Lou. I remember the hype for Independence Day. I remember what was it? I was a freshman. I was summer going freshman to sophomore year. I remember it being a hot summer night out and going and seeing that movie at 10 p.m. and watching it on the screen and being lit up. However, Jurassic Park released in 1993, the day before my birthday.
Oh, man.
It was not planned. So Independence Day was planned, but Jurassic Park was one of those like days it was right before I turned 12. So I was 12. It was a hot summer day, but it was raining. And it was one of those like, it's raining. What else are you going to do? You're going to go to the movies. So we went to the movies. And like, I can still picture it. I can picture the gates opening. I can picture, and every day to this day, and I am going to be 37 years old, the first time Sam O'Neill lays his eyes on that Brachiosaurus,
Yeah.
I fucking cry. I kid you not. It elicited that type of wonder and emotional response in me as a 12-year-old that I was like, these dinosaurs are real. And so I think that's what I have to go with, is that Independence Day I knew was a fantasy, but this was like the what if, of a child, like what if they really truly did this? What if it really happened? What if I could see this one day? And it's still like, I can feel it right now. So I got to go with Jurassic Park.
All right. It's 2-1. Sarah, what do you say?
Yeah, Aaron, I can't really say it any better than you just did. Jurassic Park, just that sense of wonder, and it just gets me. That score when it comes on, I remember going to Islands of Adventure as a kid and thinking I was really going to Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And it's just one of the best films ever, and I love Independence Day, but I can't not send Jurassic Park through.
Yeah.
All right, it is 2-2. Jeremy, you get to decide who moves on to the Final Four. Is it Jurassic Park or is it Independence Day?
You know, like all of you, I have distinct memories of Independence Day. I watched it with my dad a lot. He got surround sound speakers when they were a new thing. And that DVD of Independence Day was awesome. But here's where I come down on this. Steven Spielberg gave us Jurassic Park. He also gave us Schindler's List. Roland Emmerich gave us Independence Day and also 2012. So Jurassic Park is the winner, and we're moving it on.
That is some weak sauce rationale, my friend. So what? So can I throw Always at you for Steven Spielberg? Well, 1941.
Sure. 1941. Sure, of course.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, Jeremy, where do we got? What's the finals for the 2000s? What do we got?
Absolutely. The Cinderella story continues for The Hangover, as it is going up, though, against a buzzsaw that is The Dark Knight. Do the right thing, people.
All right. I think
I'll start it, Lou. It's The Dark Knight, and it's not even close.
I think this is maybe the easiest matchup we have here. Yeah, look, Hangover was it's still a great summer movie. It's so much fun. We haven't talked about its sequels though, and how it maybe causes us to rethink the first movie. But yeah, Dark Knight. I'm right there with you. It's The Dark Knight. It's that movie was again another major event. Great film, no question. Aaron, how about you?
I have to say Dark Knight. I would agree with you on everything you just said. And again, it was the event and the anticipation.
Yeah. All right, Sarah.
Yeah, Dark Knight. Absolutely.
Okay. And Craig?
Let's talk about how great of a matchup this would have been if it was one of Marvel's most, Jeremy's word, iconic superheroes versus DC's most iconic superhero.
Oh, man,
but instead, we had to advance The Hangover instead of Spider-Man 2 because you're all insane because the 2000s were dominated by the superhero movie in the summer, and obviously Dark Knight should win the sweep here. It would have been a much better, robust discussion had it been Spider-Man versus Batman.
Oh, we can
but
move on
you
much
all ruined
faster
that.
now.
Yeah, now we can move on faster.
And I'll say this, it would have been more robust had X-Men advanced, because I would have voted for X-Men over Harry Potter and Hangover, because I think X-Men was better than Spider-Man 2. But
I agree with you, Lou.
so thank you. We could have talked about that a lot more, but we didn't, so we won't. Dark Knight advances, and our last in our decade finals, Jeremy, what do we got?
All right, the 2010s comes down to Guardians of the Galaxy going up against Diana and the Amazons in Wonder Woman. The Battle of the Superheroes.
Yeah, for me, this is MCU versus DCEU. It's Marvel versus DC, and I think for representation purposes, if nothing else, Marvel's just way more ubiquitous in terms of the cultural landscape. And I think Guardians is a more fun movie than Wonder Woman. I like Wonder Woman a lot, and I think it transcends a lot of its own, clearly its own franchise. But I'm going to go with Guardians over Wonder Woman because I do think it's a lot more fun. It's more of a summer movie to me, and it is a better representation of this decade than Wonder Woman is. So, Aaron, how about you?
I would agree. I think when it comes down to those two, Guardians is more of the event, and maybe that's also because I have a penchant for MCU over DC. Wonder Woman was a great movie, but my heart belongs to Star-Lord.
All right. Jeremy, how about you?
Yep, Guardians. Not even close for me.
All right. Sarah?
Same here. I've never even seen Wonder Woman. So
She said that last time.
yeah.
Wow. Oh, you didn't? You said that last time?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. And Craig, anything to add?
Just for all the reasons that Star Wars is in the Final Four, it makes sense that Guardians is in the Final Four, in my opinion. IMO.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of we are at the Final Four. Jeremy, what do we have?
We have it right here. Boom. There they are. Look how gorgeous they are.
I'm okay with this.
Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, taking on Jurassic Park, and The Dark Knight taking on Guardians of the Galaxy. I am happy with those four.
I think that's a pretty good Final Four. I think that's good representation from each decade. All right. So let's get into it. And it's not even 80s. There's no 80s representation here. We're now 70s versus 90s. The 70s movie advances over the 80s movie. So here we go. Star Wars, A New Hope versus Jurassic Park. Sarah, let's start with you.
Okay. As we're talking summer blockbusters, I think I have to judge it by being alive at the time of being able to see it as a summer blockbuster. So for me, I have to vote for Jurassic Park. I love the Star Wars franchise. I can't say that because there's three there in the middle that suck bad. Yeah. But for me, as a person being born in the mid 80s and being, like in her prime childhood, the time Jurassic Park came out, that was just it for me. Like all the toys and all of everything that we had of Jurassic Park, and just we watched it on repeat, and I still am like that to this day. If I see it on something, I'm like, Jurassic Park, okay. So, and like I said about Star Wars, this is definitely not my favorite of the three first release Star Wars. Were Empire and Jedi not released in the summer?
They were, however, I thought
a little unfair.
I just wondered
it would have been a little. It was hard to put all three of them in
sure.
a 16.
Sure, I think if it was one of those two for me, I would think harder on this. But I think I'm going to go with Jurassic Park.
All right, Craig, how about you?
Yeah, for me, there's a really good book out there called How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, and it talks a lot about the development of Star Wars and how really, truly, this could almost be argued as the most successful independent film ever made, just because it had to be shopped to so many different studios. George Lucas kind of went out there and made this on his own, in his own way. And it became, I mean, literally you cannot talk pop culture with anybody on this earth and not somehow bring up Star Wars or something. Some line from Star Wars will come up regardless of who you are and where you are in life. So to me, it's got to be Star Wars in the final.
Yeah, for me, the cultural impact of Star Wars is just immeasurable. I think compared to Jurassic Park, especially, and this comes later after A New Hope comes out, but you get the toy line. Star Wars is the biggest thing in the world for about 6 or 7 years. From like 77 to 84, and then it lies dormant until the late 90s. But during that time period, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing a Star Wars. And we argued about this a lot when we talked about the greatest 80s movies of all time, when we talked about The Empire Strikes Back. But when you're talking summer blockbuster, it all starts with Star Wars. It builds off of what Jaws did, and then, as I said last round, does it better. So I'm going to give my vote to Star Wars. Aaron, how about you?
I think at first, like emotionally, I was like, oh, but Jurassic Park. And you're right. Like to say, well, I didn't see that movie in the theater originally. So the emotional impact of Jurassic Park as a child was bigger. However, in looking at the definition of a blockbuster, what Star Wars represents and exactly what you're saying, its cultural impact. Star Wars paves the way after Jaws for franchising. I mean, to be honest, I don't know about any other movie, but I know that like when Star Wars was released, people were dressing up in costumes. That paves the way for Comic-Con, for cosplay, for things later. There were all of the books that were created in the expanded Star Wars universe that George Lucas sanctioned and licensed. Obviously all the other movies, like, even though there was a gap in between the original 3 movies and the next 3 movies, as a 15-year-old girl or as a 14-year-old girl before those movies even came out, the next set, I had a tie-dye Star Wars shirt and was putting my hair in Princess Leia buns. So like it wasn't completely dead. You know what I mean? And so I gotta go Star Wars.
All right, so that's 3. That's enough to advance. Jeremy, what do you got to say before we move on to the finals?
I'll save it for the finals, but I would have voted Star Wars as well. So
all right. So that gets us over to the other side of the Final Four. Jeremy, what's our matchup?
Absolutely, the other Final Four matchup here is going to be The Dark Knight versus Guardians of the Galaxy. The good DC versus Marvel.
Yeah, like if you just put it on paper and say DC versus Marvel, you want to say Marvel. But then when you look at these two actual matchups, it's different to me. I gotta say, I'm gonna go with The Dark Knight because of these 2 films alone. Dark Knight was an event. And it's weird to say that because I know some of that was surrounded because of the curiosity around Heath Ledger's performance, because he had passed away before the release of the film. But, what it did from Batman Begins to this, that movie grips you from second one. And I like Guardians a lot, but what I'll say if I'm going to compare the 2 is that I think Guardians takes a good 30 to 40 minutes to get going because it follows some origin story tropes that Dark Knight doesn't have to because it's the middle story. And as far as an event that everyone saw and didn't get to through word of mouth, I think Dark Knight's a bigger event. So I'm going to go with Dark Knight. Yeah. Jeremy, you didn't get to vote on the last one, so what do you say?
Yeah, well, I'm going to save. I think it is going to win, so I'm going to save mine. But I'm The Dark Knight. That's my vote.
Okay, how about you, Sarah?
I say The Dark Knight too. I love Guardians; it's super fun. But if we're talking about like a just overall just blockbuster, amazing film, The Dark Knight just has me from start to finish.
All right, Craig, how about you?
I would have voted for Guardians, and mainly partially because I'm a Disney Marvel fanboy, but at the same time, Dark Knight has a weird place with me, and not to get like super dark here for a second, but I distinctly remember coming home and like hearing news that something was going on and turning on CNN and seeing the Aurora shootings going on. So I have a hard time with that movie. Like I don't know. Obviously, I know it came out in the summer because of that, but I don't know. It just, for whatever reason, it kind of always taints a picture of that movie in my mind. And so when I'm looking at it up against Guardians, again, Guardians to me is our generation Star Wars. So it would make sense. I would have advanced it to the finals because of that. But I get it. Dark Knight is a great movie, and it'll be a fun competition in the finals.
All right, Aaron, you got anything you want to say?
No.
All right.
I would have went Dark Knight, yeah.
Okay, so Jeremy, what do we got?
Here it is, folks. The moment you've been waiting for. Dun, 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 dun. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope versus The Dark Knight for all the marbles.
Wow, what a weird matchup.
Yeah.
Like, for everything we got to, here we are.
In
I
a
got
way, it
clarity
kind of
on
makes
this, man.
sense. If
I
you
got
think
clarity.
about it, if you think about the origins of the blockbuster and how Spielberg did start it with Jaws, but then it kind of shifted into this sci-fi, this whole sci-fi, lots of aliens, lots of sci-fi nature, and then how that's changed over time to evolve to the superhero movie really dominating the summer. I think that this is like a perfect encapsulation of what it used to mean to be a blockbuster in the sci-fi epic versus what it does mean now in the superhero movie. So I would pat ourselves on the back and say that we did a good job of bringing that together.
By design, of course.
Of course, we're all brilliant. Good
Lou,
job,
I'll start
everyone.
this if you don't mind.
Go for it, Jeremy.
Cognizant of everything Star Wars accomplished, and Aaron, you very eloquently put there, like Comic-Cons and all these pop culture events don't exist without Star Wars being what it is. But I remember the hype for The Dark Knight was so real because finally Batman was seen as being gotten right by Christopher Nolan in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And nothing against the Tim Burton ones, but like I remember Roger Ebert was always the reviewer that I followed voraciously, and he said Batman Begins was the first time he saw his Batman on screen. And so then you have, okay, Christopher Nolan, go do it again. And I remember not even just the idea of like when they cast Heath Ledger, there was craziness like over that casting. And then when you hear the prelim stuff about his casting, about his performance on set, everybody's going nuts about it. And then of course his unfortunate death. The thing that got me was this is a big year for blockbusters and for superhero films. 2008. This and Iron Man came out in the same year, and this movie didn't just meet the expectation, but it showed you that a superhero film didn't have to just be that blockbuster film. It could aspire to be the best kind of movie making and filmmaking that the industry can possibly produce. And that is why it is one of my favorite movies. And that is why I think it shifted the blockbuster away from, okay, it's just going to entertain me for a couple hours, into it can challenge me and it can be amazing at the same time. And it can be award worthy. So that is why I am voting for The Dark Knight as the best blockbuster of all time.
Wow. All right, Craig, you've asked for the floor. It is yours.
So everything that Jeremy just said is wonderfully stated. If the movie it wasn't up against was freaking Star Wars, which, I mean, completely.
If it was up against Mamma Mia, we'd be like, all right.
Right. I'd be right there with you, Jeremy. But this is Star Wars, and it truly is so embedded in our culture beyond anything, beyond possibly any other movie out there. Star Wars is embedded in our culture from, and again, not necessarily A New Hope, but the Luke, I am your father comes up all of the time in every single, which by the way,
that's episode 5, man.
I bet your husband says that all the time. And I bet
every day in my house, every day.
But there's just so much out there that starts with A New Hope, and it launches such a wonderful culture. It launches everything for us. It's got to be A New Hope. And technically, it's just Star Wars, because when it came out in 1977, it was just Star Wars. But it, to me, that has to win. All due deference to Chris Nolan in The Dark Knight. Great movie, but it's not Star Wars.
All right, Sarah, how about you?
So if I was looking at, okay, so I was looking at the Final Four, and as much as I love the right side of it, the more recent movies, Guardians of the Galaxy and The Dark Knight, when I'm looking at summer blockbusters, I think it would have been a tougher vote for me if I had to vote Star Wars versus Jurassic Park in the finals here, or Star Wars versus Back to the Future, or something like that. But like Craig just said, like it's a culture, like it's a lifestyle, and so if I'm being honest here, as I know I haven't gone with it in previous rounds, but it has to be Star Wars.
All right. So yeah, this is such a tough one for me. Because I think Jeremy, you laid it out really well in terms of what a blockbuster used to be versus what a blockbuster is to these days. The evolution of the blockbuster. And so do we vote for the OG or do we vote for what the modern sensibility tells us? Because I do think The Dark Knight, if you look at everything that's come after that, because and for the record, 2008 is one of the most bonkers years in history. You have Iron Man, you have Dark Knight, you have Mamma Mia, you have Sex and the City, you have Hancock, you have Indiana Jones, and you have like that is
about that one.
There's a lot of like big movies of 2008. There's a lot of really interesting movies, and I do think the MCU takes a lot of its future films from The Dark Knight almost as much as they do from Iron Man because of what the audience responded to it. I think The Dark Knight's maybe the best comic book movie of all time. Star Wars in and of itself is such so here's what I'm going to do.
Give it.
I'm gonna give it.
Coin?
No. Here's what I'm gonna do because I'm gonna be like the Joker. I'm gonna be an agent of chaos.
Agent of chaos. Yes.
You're gonna let our guests decide.
And I'm gonna vote for The Dark Knight.
Aaron.
Just so our new arrival to the front row can make that decision, knowing that whichever side she chooses, I will be okay with. So, Aaron, here it is.
I will be too.
Star Wars: A New Hope versus The Dark Knight for the greatest summer blockbuster of all time. What is your vote?
Oh my God. I just...
Remember the kids.
Yeah, they're both such good movies. Obviously.
Remember those buns.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's no way. I'm not wavering. I'm just I'm trying to give just accolades where it's due. I think that The Dark Knight created an experience, but when it really comes down to the definition of a blockbuster, and I keep going back because you can argue that every single movie in this bracket they're all successful monetarily, but Star Wars, the impact is just immeasurable. The amount of inclusiveness that this created across so many different types of people. I just think even to this day, like I feel like when Star Wars started, it was like kind of niche, like, oh, it's kind of nerdy, whatever. But now like it's literally everybody, it's on everybody's tongues. Everybody's kids love it. Parents, like I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can argue with it. It's Star Wars. So the day I die. Like
getting to see it in the theaters now, like even today, like when those credits, like that it comes on and it starts scrolling, like people just go insane.
I mean, yes.
Like we were in a theater where it froze and people were rioting, throwing shit at the screen.
The audio went out.
Because the audio went out. And
the audio, yes.
Yeah.
And I remember
an experience.
And honestly, none of us were old enough to see Star Wars when it came out in 1977, but I remember seeing it in 1997 during the theatrical re-release. That was such an event, and I remember falling in love with Star Wars all over again. is getting to see it in the big theater. And episode 4, I think of all of them, is easily the most fun. Return of the Jedi, maybe,
I do love Return of the Jedi, but I'm biased.
I love Return of the Jedi.
Right.
I love it.
But as a standalone film, like 4 is so much fun.
And
it
holds up.
So I don't think we could have picked a better winner. So there you have it. Our winner. The greatest summer movie blockbuster of all time is Star Wars.
There you go, everyone. Hope. If you want to see it, ding, 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 ding.
There it is. We did it. All right.
I swear I didn't do this for the plugs, but we did just cover that the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Disney's parks was announced. It'll be May 31st at Disneyland. It'll be August 29th at Walt Disney World. And you better believe the Beyond the Mouse podcast will have all the information you need about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
He's the best segue artist in the world.
There we go. Well, let's get there. Since there we are, thank you all for joining us for this. This was a lot of fun, as always. It's such a good time. Brackets are always fun, and we had a lot of fun along the way. So, yeah, Craig, you got your plugs in. Aaron, before we let you go, I know you're doing a lot of cool stuff. I'm a big follower of you on Instagram. What are you up to? Where can our listeners follow you if they so choose?
Oh, okay. So I'm on Facebook under Aaron E. McCabe, M C, big C, A, B as in boy, E. Or you can find me at Instagram, Aaron E. McCabe, no spaces, no periods, no underscores, nothing of that nature. It's a lot of motivation, fitness account. I'm also a nurse, so a little bit of sass, sometimes some nerdiness in there you'll get, but that is where you can find me. And I'm happy to have you all join me.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. It's awesome to have you on board, and I know we're going to get you on.
Thank you.
I love it.
I wore my Bloodsport shirt tonight for a specific reason.
Yeah,
big JCD fan over here.
Yeah, and we're doing Bloodsport on Guilty Pleasures at some point. That's happening.
Definitely.
We're gonna get you back on at least for that, and for all sorts of other stuff. Jeremy, Sarah, what do you got going on? Where can the people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just say for the network as a whole, already this month you've heard Supergirl on Guilty Pleasures with Lou. You've heard a Full Disclosure on Captain Marvel. Sarah and I on The Road Knows Nothing reacted to the season 8 trailer for Game of Thrones. You heard Brandon and I's personal 100 through 91 on our 100 Best Show, and of course Craig's Q&A live session that he did on Beyond the Mouse. And of course Facebook Flashback returned this month with new host Ryan Luton's with Army of Darkness. But for the rest of the month, you will hear a Full Disclosure on Jordan Peele's Us that Sarah and I will be doing. For classics, we are going with the tournament motif, and Brandon Davis is going to be bringing you Marx Madness. That is right, Marx Brothers films, people. And then, of course, to close out the month, our newest show, Pop Culture Draft Night with Phil Rockwell. He is going to be doing a Game of Thrones Season 8 Deadpool draft. So you are not going to want to miss that one. Sarah and I are also going to be on that. And, of course, Sarah and I run Are You Afraid of the Podcast, the Are You Afraid of the Dark retrospective. We just released the Tale of the Phone Police, and you will, by the end of the month, be hearing the Tale of the Doll Maker. So make sure that you get on all of those. And, of course, if you want to find us, frnpod.com.
Cool. And if you're listening to this on the Guilty Pleasures podcast, Guilty Pleasures will be back in its regular format in April. And we got a doozy for you. WrestleMania season is upon us, folks. So we're going to put a poll up. And in fact, as you hear this is going to be up on our Facebook. What wrestling movie do you want to see us cover? We got two good ones for you. You want WWF, you want WCW. Because on the WWF side, we have the Hulk Hogan starred wrestling movie No Holds Barred.
Oh, God.
Celebrating its 30th anniversary. But are you a WCW fan? If so, you can vote for Ready to Rumble.
Oh.
David Arquette, Oliver Platt, Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg, Sting. They're all there.
Joey Pants, man. Joey Pantoliano.
Yeah. Oliver Platt as a former WCW champion. Who doesn't want to see
Jerry
that?
the King Lawler, WWF superstar.
So we're going to put that up as you're listening to this right now, that'll be up on our Facebook page. So you can tell us what you want to hear from us for Guilty Pleasures for the month of April. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheFakeLouHair. And also go and rate and review us on iTunes if you're listening to us on the main feed. We love those rate and reviews. If you're listening to us on the Guilty Pleasure feed, as always, rate and review us, subscribe. If you review us on Guilty Pleasures and request a movie in your review, we're going to do it. We're getting to it. We got 2 big ones coming up for the summer. Speaking of summer blockbusters, we're doing a summer blockbuster this summer. We're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like Jeremy's jam.
Oh my
He's
gosh, I
legitimately
love
that
obsessed with
movie.
it. Jeremy
So-
loves it.
It's a great
It's getting
film.
there.
Oh
We're
my
going to get to
God.
it. So the only way you're going to know when
When
we
roll
do it
into
is
the
by
Wild Wild
subscribing to, we're going to break down that video. Just
God.
we're going to do an hour on that video alone. But
Lou, I might be able to wrap that entire thing.
I think you can.
the only way you're gonna find that out is by subscribing to the Guilty Pleasures feed. So make sure you're doing that. And as Jeremy said, follow us at our website, frnpod.com, and on our Facebook page, The Front Row Network, and on Twitter at Front Row Reviews with a Z. Jeremy, did I miss anything?
I can't imagine.
All right. So thank you all for joining us on YouTube and on the podcast and on Facebook. By the way, these votes are still going. We're going to play this bracket through to the very end with your votes. We're just not ending with the second. So go to our Facebook page right now. There are votes active as we speak. I don't know where we'll be at when this drops, but you can go to our Facebook and help finish out this bracket with a viewer vote. Maybe you get to a different result than we do. Who knows? The
Choose
only
your
way
own
you'll know.
adventure.
Yeah, choose
Exactly.
your own blockbuster, man.
The only way you'll know is by going to our Facebook page, and every time you vote,
Yeah.
you'll be entered for a drawing for a special prize courtesy of the Front
Every
Row
single
Network.
vote, increase your chances, people.
So there you go. Get on it. And in the meantime, we will catch you later with a lot of other stuff we're doing. But for the meantime, for the Front Row Network, I'm Lou Hare.
I'm Jeremy Geckner.
I'm the notorious SBG.
I'm Craig McFarland.
And I'm Erin McCabe.
And as always, we'll see you in the front row.
Well done, everyone.